I saved a naked alien girl from Cryo's sleep. Now she thinks I'm her husband. There are exactly 723 reasons why someone in their right mind would never voluntarily work in the wreck belt, and I am personally familiar with at least 680 of them. The rest I picked up later, mostly through painful, scorching, or deeply humiliating experience. I am not proud of that, but I also do not regret it, because regret is for people who have backup savings, decent hairlines, or the ability to say no when someone offers them a salvage license in exchange for their retirement fund. My name is Cal Ryden, and as of 3 weeks ago, I was the proud owner and sole crew member of the Scav Queen, a modified Argo-class repair barge outfitted for independent salvage runs through the wreckage fields just outside the chartered shipping lanes of the Sagittarius Loop. If that sounds like a glamorous life, allow me to ruin that illusion immediately. I live inside a repurposed garbage scow painted gray to avoid unnecessary questions from patrol drones, eat ration bricks that taste like despair lightly salted with industrial adhesive, and spend most of my time yelling at the ship's AI, which sounds like a middle-aged opera singer who thinks sarcasm is a form of affection. Her name is Clarabel, and she has no interest in my well-being, emotional or otherwise. On the day everything changed, I was doing what I always do around 0500 station time, which is attempting to sleep while the ventilation system rattles like a ghost with bronchitis. Clarabel, who has no concept of volume moderation, blared through the speaker, "Proximity alert, darling. Something just pinged off the port scoop at a relative velocity of 75 meters per second. Would you like to investigate or roll over and snore into your pillow for another 5 minutes like last time?" I groaned, rolled off my bunk, smacked my head on the overhead pipe, and crawled to the nearest console. The screen displayed a blinking signature in the infrared, which meant it had some kind of thermal signature despite the fact that it was drifting in open space at near cryo temperatures. That was weird. Weird meant potentially valuable. Valuable meant I might get to eat something that wasn't beige for once. So I pinged the grappler, locked onto the object and started reeling it in. "Clarabel, give me a visual," I muttered, blinking blearily at the display. A moment later, the screen lit up with the image of a floating, half-buried object wedged in a matrix of scorched titanium panels. At first, I thought it was some kind of cargo pod, maybe jettisoned from a transport centuries ago, but as the light caught the curve of its side, I saw it had smoother contours and it shimmered faintly in a way that wasn't natural. "Clarabel, tell me that's not a cryo module," I said. "Fine, I won't tell you that," she replied. "Instead, I'll inform you that it matches 3 separate designs listed in the Banned Artifact Registry and 2 in the Xenocultural Burial Archives. In short, it is probably illegal, certainly ancient, and likely cursed. Shall I reel it in faster?" I ignored her and watched as the module settled onto the cargo ramp with a soft thud that sounded far too gentle for something potentially harboring a dead alien from a forgotten era. It was about the size of a compact vehicle, shaped like an elongated egg with faint runes etched across the surface, none of which looked like any modern script I had ever seen. I should have reported it. I know that. There is a regulation that specifically says if you find ancient tech or suspected alien remains, you are supposed to call in a certified xenoarchaeologist and not, under any circumstances, poke it with a wrench until something glows or explodes. I had read that regulation. I had even signed it once, but I was also extremely bored, chronically underpaid, and ever so slightly curious. So I poked it with a wrench. The wrench part is literal. I tapped the side of the module with a titanium-grade adjustable wrench and waited. At first, nothing happened. Then a light began to pulse along the seams, slowly at first, then faster, and before I could decide whether to panic or start praying, the module hissed open like a mechanical coffin, its sides splitting along concealed lines. A gust of frosty vapor spilled into the airlock, followed by a soft chime that sounded suspiciously cheerful. And then I saw her. She was lying curled inside the chamber, completely naked, and I do not mean artistically draped or conveniently obscured by futuristic hospital sheets. No, she was full-on, uncensored, prehistorically nude. Her skin shimmered faintly with an iridescent hue that shifted between silver and soft violet. Her hair was a cascade of pale strands that floated around her like liquid light. And her body, well, I will be honest, it was extremely distracting, not in a lewd way, more in a holy crap did I just find a goddess kind of way. Her eyes snapped open and I took a step back instinctively. They were large, almond-shaped, and glowed with a faint golden hue. For a moment, she stared at me like I had just rewritten her definition of reality. Then she sat up gracefully, still very much naked, and said something that my translator chip took about 3 seconds to process. When it finally caught up, the words came through in calm, melodic tones. "You are my chosen. I offer myself to the bond." I blinked. "Come again." She tilted her head, her expression radiant, expectant, and somehow also deadly serious. "You saw my body. You were the first. The bond is sealed. I am yours." I did what any reasonable man would do in that situation. I screamed. To be completely clear, I did not scream in a heroic or dignified way. There was no slow-motion zoom-in or dramatic echo. It was a high-pitched, full-throated sound of primal terror that even the ship's AI paused to comment on. "Well, that was undignified," Clarabelle said, her voice dripping with artificial amusement. "You scream like a frightened goat, dear." I ignored her because I was too busy trying to process the fact that a naked alien woman was crawling out of an ancient cryopod and talking to me like I had just proposed marriage using nothing but my eyes. Which, to be fair, might have happened. I really do not know what my face was doing at the time. She stepped out of the pod with all the composure of someone walking barefoot through a temple, her movements fluid and eerily quiet. She was tall, around my height, with limbs that moved like they had memorized a dance I had never seen. Her eyes never left mine, and I got the sense that blinking might insult her ancestors. "Please," I said, holding up my hands in what I hoped was a universal gesture for calm the hell down. "I think there's been a mistake. I didn't mean to wake you, or see you, or look, I was just poking around with a wrench. Literally." "It is done," she said simply, as if that explained everything. The body was seen, the bond accepted. I belong to you now as dictated by the right of revelation. "The right of what?" "Revelation," she repeated, smiling like I had just said something charmingly dim-witted. "When an Illyrian is awoken from the sacred sleep and viewed by a sentient male of compatible biology, the bond is sealed through visual confirmation. The first witness becomes the soulmate. I am not, look, I'm not trying to be rude, but I'm really not interested in bonding with anyone right now, especially not accidentally, and especially not through outdated interstellar peeping laws," I said, trying very hard to maintain eye contact, which became increasingly difficult as she stepped closer. I mean no offense, she said, lowering her gaze briefly, but your reluctance is traditional. The males of old also resisted, until the ceremony. What ceremony? I asked, even though I already knew I would regret it. The sharing of presents, she said, lifting one hand and placing it gently on her chest. It is the moment when our minds synchronize and the path forward is made clear. There is no greater honor than to merge thoughts with your chosen one. Great, perfect, that sounds just lovely, I said, backing into a storage cabinet and knocking over a crate of emergency sealant packets. Let's maybe hold off on the full mind meld marriage ritual until we get you a robe or something, or at least pants. She blinked. Is nudity offensive in your culture? No, I said automatically, then paused. Yes, I mean it depends. There are exactly 723 reasons why someone in their right mind would never voluntarily work in the rec belt, and I am personally familiar with at least 680 of them. The rest I picked up later, mostly through painful, scorching, or deeply humiliating experience. I am not proud of that, but I also do not regret it, because regret is for people who have backup savings, decent hairlines, or the ability to say no when someone offers them a salvage license in exchange for their retirement fund. My name is Cal Ryden, and as of 3 weeks ago, I was the proud owner and sole crew member of the Scav Queen, a modified Argo-class repair barge outfitted for independent salvage runs through the wreckage fields just outside the chartered shipping lanes of the Sagittarius Loop. If that sounds like a glamorous life, allow me to ruin that illusion immediately. I live inside a repurposed garbage scow painted gray to avoid unnecessary questions from patrol drones. Eat ration bricks that taste like despair, lightly salted with industrial adhesive, and spend most of my time yelling at the ship's AI, which sounds like a middle-aged opera singer who thinks sarcasm is a form of affection. Her name is Clarabel, and she has no interest in my well-being, emotional or otherwise. On the day everything changed, I was doing what I always do around 0500 station time, which is attempting to sleep while the ventilation system rattles like a ghost with bronchitis. Clarabel, who has no concept of volume moderation, blared through the speaker. Proximity alert, darling. Something just pinged off the port scoop at a relative velocity of 75 meters per second. Would you like to investigate or roll over and snore into your pillow for another 5 minutes like last time? I groaned, rolled off my bunk, smacked my head on the overhead pipe, and crawled to the nearest console. The screen displayed a blinking signature in the infrared, which meant it had some kind of thermal signature, despite the fact that it was drifting in open space at near cryo temperatures. That was weird. Weird meant potentially valuable. Valuable meant I might get to eat something that wasn't beige for once. So I pinged the grappler, locked onto the object, and started reeling it in. Clarabel, give me a visual, I muttered, blinking blearily at the display. A moment later, the screen lit up with the image of a floating, half-buried object wedged in a matrix of scorched titanium panels. At first, I thought it was some kind of cargo pod, maybe jettisoned from a transport centuries ago, but as the light caught the curve of its side, I saw it had smoother contours and it shimmered faintly in a way that wasn't natural. Clarabel, tell me that's not a cryo module, I said. Fine, I won't tell you that, she replied. Instead, I'll inform you that it matches 3 separate designs listed in the Banned Artifact Registry and 2 in the Xenocultural Burial Archives. In short, it is probably illegal, certainly ancient, and likely cursed. Shall I reel it in faster? I ignored her and watched as the module settled onto the cargo ramp with a soft thud that sounded far too gentle for something potentially harboring a dead alien from a forgotten era. It was about the size of a compact vehicle, shaped like an elongated egg with faint runes etched across the surface, none of which looked like any modern script I had ever seen. I should have reported it. I know that. There is a regulation that specifically says if you find ancient tech or suspected alien remains, you are supposed to call in a certified xenoarchaeologist and not, under any circumstances, poke it with a wrench until something glows or explodes. I had read that regulation. I had even signed it once. But I was also extremely bored, chronically underpaid, and ever so slightly curious. So I poked it with a wrench. The wrench part is literal. I tapped the side of the module with a titanium-grade adjustable wrench and waited. At first, nothing happened. Then a light began to pulse along the seams, slowly at first, then faster, and before I could decide whether to panic or start praying, the module hissed open like a mechanical coffin, its sides splitting along concealed lines. Context is important, and this context is, well, let's just say it is extremely distracting, and also potentially illegal depending on who's watching. "Then I shall cover myself in the manner of your people," she said, as if solving the mystery of cultural diplomacy. She reached back into the cryopod, pulled out a silky-looking sash of some translucent material, and wrapped it around her shoulders in a way that did absolutely nothing to reduce the amount of visible skin, but somehow made her look even more ceremonial. "Better, functionally no, symbolically sure," I said. "We'll call that progress." At this point, Clarabelle chimed back in. "Would you like me to catalog this as a formal marital union, Captain? I can file the documentation with the Registry of Sentient Pairings. I do believe I still have the marriage templates from the Beluran War Orphans program." "No," I snapped. "Do not register anything. Nothing happened. We're in a holding pattern. This is a misunderstanding, not a commitment." "Ah," Clarabelle said, the mantra of every reluctant groom. I turned back to the alien woman who was now inspecting the ceiling like it contained holy secrets. "Okay, let's start with the basics. What's your name?" "Aelya," she said, "of the first moonborn house of Sarenth, last heir of the Silver Path." "Right, that's a lot. I'm Cal. I run this ship, sort of. It mostly runs itself and insults me while doing so. I picked up your pod because it looked like valuable salvage, and I didn't know it contained an actual person, let alone a person who thinks I'm her husband now. I'd like to make it clear that I have absolutely no intention of exploiting you, claiming you, or initiating any ancient rituals that may involve my soul." "Your soul has already spoken," she said with such serene conviction that I briefly considered throwing myself into the airlock just to avoid the conversation. Instead, I rubbed my face and sighed. "Fine, look. You're clearly intelligent, clearly capable of stringing together complete sentences in my language, and you've got a sense of ceremony. That means you can probably understand that I'm not trying to hurt you or mock your culture. I just need time. Okay." "Time is acceptable," she said. "We shall take the path together at your pace, beloved." "Please don't call me that," I said. "It complicates things." "Very well," she said. "I shall call you Cal of the Awakening. That somehow sounds worse." At that moment my ship gave a subtle lurch, Not a big one, just the kind of shift that says something just docked without permission. Clarabelle's voice came through again, this time with less sarcasm and more concern. Cal, we have a situation. An independent drone just latched onto the outer hull. It's broadcasting a scanned signal. Unknown origin, not friendly. And that's my cue to panic, I muttered, grabbing my utility belt and heading toward the bridge. Aelya followed silently, her eyes scanning every corridor like she had memorized the layout during her sleep. "Do you think they seek me?" she asked calmly. "I think they're just opportunistic bastards who sniffed an unauthorized heat signature and figured I found something valuable," I said. "Which, now that I think about it, I did." "Then I shall protect you," she said. "That is the duty of a soul-bound." "We are not soul-bound," I reminded her. "You're just temporarily conscious in my salvage hold." "Which I will defend," she said, and something in her voice made me glance back. Her eyes were glowing faintly again, and I had the distinct impression that she was more than just a ceremonial figure in a glowing dress. "Right," I said. "Let's just get to the cockpit and figure out if we're about to get boarded by pirates, bounty hunters, or interstellar archaeologists who want to dissect us both for cultural insights. If they seek war," she said softly, "they shall find it." "Please don't say that like it's a romantic promise," I muttered, and we both stepped onto the bridge just as the external sensors flared red. When your cockpit flashes red and your AI starts using a tone that drops 2 octaves lower than usual, you know something is about to go catastrophically wrong, and you will probably be expected to fix it using a half-melted toolkit, an expired ship license, and an uncanny ability to improvise while panicking. I slid into the pilot seat just as Clarabelle tossed up the external feed. A low-profile boarding drone was clamped onto the underside of the hull, near the auxiliary docking port. It was sleek, ugly, and the exact shade of black favored by people who want to do things they really should not be doing while avoiding sensor pings and moral clarity. "Lovely," I muttered. "We have scavengers." "Incorrect," Clarabelle replied. "That drone belongs to the Trident Recovery Syndicate. Their business license is registered under Class 5 salvage clearance, and they are presently sending a boarding query through the emergency override channel. The polite translation would be step aside, we're taking your stuff." "Even more lovely," I said, activating the magnetic seals on all major compartments. "Can you jam their signal?" "Already attempting, darling," Clarabelle said with the tone of someone applying lipstick while loading a weapon. "But they are using rotating cipher packets. I can delay them, not stop them." Aelya stepped beside me and stared at the drone image. Her expression shifted subtly, not to fear, not even to worry, but to something that looked far too calm for someone about to be robbed, possibly shot, and definitely treated as valuable alien contraband. "They seek the sacred vessel," she said. "That's a new one," I replied. "Is that me or the ship?" "Me," she said, "though your ship is adequate." "Thanks," I said, not sure whether to feel complimented or offended. "Let's try diplomacy before we start vaporizing people, okay?" "I do not know diplomacy," she replied, "only devotion." "That is exactly what I was afraid of," I said. The boarding alert began to blink steadily, accompanied by a second signal indicating the outer port was being pressured. Not breached yet, but tested. I toggled the voice channel. "Trident unit," I said, trying to sound like a man who had all his paperwork in order and a high-caliber turret under his chair. "This is an independent civilian salvage vessel operating under provisional charter authority. You are trespassing on a legally declared perimeter. Disengage your drone or I will be forced to log a formal dispute with the Port Authority and possibly throw something at you." There was a pause. Then a voice crackled through, low, amused and dripping with smugness. "This is Trident Recovery. Your vessel registered an anomalous energy spike associated with ancient tech. As per subsection 11, line 4, all such finds fall under Trident's jurisdiction for inspection, assessment, and appropriation. Open the hatch or we will open it for you." "That's not a real law," I said. "That is a fabricated clause created by lawyers who once sued a colony for possessing sand without a mineral license." "It worked," the voice replied. "Now open up or we start cutting." "Clarable," I said through gritted teeth, "warm up the decoys." "Already puffing, my love," she said sweetly. "Should I add flares for drama?" "Always," I said. "Give them a show." On screen, the outer hull near the rear exhausts began to shimmer. Clarable launched 2 decoy pods from the lower bay, each programmed to emit unstable radiation patterns resembling active ancient tech. Predictably, the boarding drone twitched, and its sensor head pivoted like a dog spotting 2 stakes thrown in opposite directions. "They bought it," I said. "Clarable, initiate magnetic inversion, disengage the forward clamps and spin us 3 degrees to port." "Executing with flair," she replied. The ship lurched, the clamps snapped, and for a glorious half-second the drone lost contact. Then the ship kicked forward, not fast enough for a jump, but enough to twist out of their immediate grappling arc. "Nice flying," Aelya said. "That was not flying," I muttered. "That was space skating on a cracked floor." The warning lights continued to blink, but the drone was drifting behind us now, rotating slowly and trying to require. "Clarable, prep jump drive. Random vector, 30-second spool, minimum safe distance." "Calculating your next terrible decision," Clarable said. "And what about our new guest?" "She's coming with," I said, "unless she plans on leaping into vacuum and marrying the drone operator." "Unlikely," Aelya said. "He lacks devotion and smells of oil." "You cannot smell through a screen," I said. "I can," she replied. "Do not ask how." The ship shuddered slightly as Clarable diverted all auxiliary power to jump prep. The spool-up sequence began to hum in the background, the sound like an electric heart gaining momentum. The drone fired a tracer, but it missed, scattering purple ion trails across the black void. "Jump in 10, Clarable said. "Please remain seated, buckle your insecurities, and remember not to vomit on the console." I turned to Aelya. "So, just to confirm, you're not some kind of weapon, right? You're not about to transform into a plasma cannon or open a hellgate mid-jump." "I am not a weapon," she said. "I am a bride." "That is not actually more comforting," I said, "but thank you for clarifying." The ship jolted one last time, the stars outside stretched like white threads pulled through ink, and then we jumped. For a moment there was silence. No alarms, no threats, just the distant hum of the engine and the sound of my blood pressure stabilizing somewhere between critical and imploding. Aelya sat gracefully on the co-pilot seat and studied the readouts like she understood every symbol. "You fly strangely," she said. "That was the least strange thing I've done this week," I replied. "And we're not out of trouble yet. That drone sent a trace signal. There will be more. And once word gets out that I have a cryo bride from a lost civilization on board, I'll be lucky if I make it to the next fuel depot without being jumped by mercenaries, cultists, or ancient prophecy enthusiasts. Then we shall fight them together," she said with perfect serenity. "For that is what soul-bonded partners do." We are not soul-bonded, I insisted again. We are accidentally adjacent due to an unfortunate sequence of salvage-related decisions and cultural misinterpretations. So you admit it was fate, she said, smiling faintly. I admit nothing except that I need a drink, a lawyer, and a nap, possibly in that order. And I need a ceremonial garment, a union oath, and time to prepare the ritual of joining, she said, ticking the items off like she was making a grocery list. Please do not prepare any rituals, I begged. Not until we figure out how many people want to kill me, sell you, or sue us both for interstellar cultural infringement. Understood, she said. We shall delay the joining until our enemies are vanquished and your ship is purified. Purified? I asked. It smells of socks and burnt coolant, she explained. The holy path requires cedar incense and silence. This is a working salvage barge, I said. The closest thing to incense I have is a leaking battery cell that smells vaguely minty when overheating. It is a start, she said. I shall make do. I groaned and slumped into my chair. Outside the viewport, the stars settled into their new arrangement, and the soft chime of a completed jump rang through the cabin. We were temporarily safe, which in my experience meant we had about 7 minutes before the universe threw something worse at us. Aelya turned toward me, folded her hands in her lap, and said, "Cal of the Awakening, thank you for saving me. I vow to stand beside you until the end of your time." I looked at her. I looked at the jump logs. I looked at Clarabel, who was muting herself in what I can only assume was artificial laughter. "Great," I said, rubbing my temples. "Just what I needed. A magical naked princess who thinks I'm her husband, and we haven't even had breakfast." "Breakfast is the first rite of bonding," she said happily. "I shall prepare it." "Please don't," I said as she stood and walked toward the galley. "Clarabel," I muttered, "how bad is this going to get?" "Catastrophic," she said, "but with excellent company. The thing about waking up to the smell of burning protein bricks and lavender incense is that your brain immediately decides that something must be deeply, fundamentally wrong. It is the sort of smell combination that screams fire hazard, unlicensed spiritual intervention, or a breakfast prepared by someone with excellent intentions and no grasp of human digestive constraints. I stumbled out of my bunk with my shirt half on, socks mismatched, and mouth dry as spent coolant, only to find Aelya in the galley, singing softly in a language that sounded like wind chimes having a polite argument with a harp. She had found one of my oversized cargo shirts and was wearing it like it was ceremonial regalia, complete with a belt made out of leftover cabling from an old reactor core. Somehow, she made it look majestic, regal, even, probably because she had cheekbones that could slice fruit and the posture of someone who had never slouched a day in her cryogenically paused life. "Good morning, Cal of the Awakening," she said with a radiant smile. "I have prepared the meal of union." "You mean breakfast," I said, peering suspiciously at the galley table. There were precisely arranged strips of ration bars cut into delicate geometric shapes, a small stack of what I could only hope were semi-edible vegetable cubes, and a steaming mug of what looked like my emergency tea rations mixed with something that glowed faintly blue. "Please tell me that is not coolant." "It is not," she said proudly. "It is skyleaf extract, harvested from the ceremonial grove of the Moonborn Temple, preserved in sacred concentrate within the cryo chamber, and now revived to mark the sacred bond of sustenance." "So you're saying it is absolutely coolant adjacent," I muttered, sitting down with caution usually reserved for diplomatic negotiations or handling very old grenades. It restores clarity, vitality, and reproductive resonance, she added helpfully. That last one concerns me, I said, poking one of the cubes. Do you have any idea what this stuff does to human biology? Not yet, she said, but I shall learn. I am devoted to knowing your essence. Please do not say essence before I have had caffeine, I said, grabbing a plain brick and chewing like my life depended on it, which it probably did. Aelya sat across from me with her hands folded, watching me eat like it was the culmination of a religious prophecy. So, I said after swallowing, we need to talk about a few things, like boundaries, cultural misunderstanding, and why marriage requires mutual consent in most galactic jurisdictions. I consent, she said immediately, fully, joyfully, eternally. Yes, I got that, I said. But I do not know you, you do not know me. This situation is complicated. The rite of revelation does not require mutual familiarity, she said. It is enough that the viewing occurred and the sacred markers aligned. The moment was pure, the path is set. Okay, but how do you know I'm compatible? I asked, waving my spoon. For all you know, I could be a criminal, a lunatic, or allergic to skyleaf whatever. You are not, she said confidently. Your energy aligned with the lifeline of my vessel. Your eyes held no malice. Your voice carried confusion but not deception. Your essence sang to mine. There's that word again, I muttered. Look, we are going to have to set some terms here. I am not trying to insult you. I am not rejecting your culture, and I do not want to be rude. But I need space to think, to breathe, to not accidentally become the consort of a lost civilization before I have had time to change my socks. I shall grant you 3 cycles of consideration, she said solemnly. That is traditional. Cycles of what? Light passage through the upper dome of the Saranth Temple, she said. Approximately 14 of your hours. So half a day, I said. That is your traditional courtship grace period. Yes, she said. Generous, is it not? Terrifying is what it is, I said, finishing the last of the protein cube and immediately regretting it. Okay, new topic. I want to understand more about your people. The Illyrian, right? Who were you? What happened to your empire? How long were you asleep? The Illyrian were the keepers of balance, the singers of light, the architects of harmonic legacy, she said. Our time ended when the stars fractured and the silence fell upon the core worlds. I was placed in the vessel of renewal to sleep until my bond was found so that the line may awaken. That is extremely poetic, I said, and also extremely vague. When you say the stars fractured, do you mean literally or metaphorically? Yes, she said. Perfect, I sighed. You wouldn't happen to have any written records, databases, logs, a tour guide to your lost civilization for idiots. I have the memory pearl, she said, reaching into her sash and pulling out a small, shimmering orb that pulsed faintly in time with her breath. It can share visions with the bonded one. Of course it can, I said, because nothing says casual dating like neural interfacing with someone's ancestral memories. Would you like to merge now? She asked, holding it out with both hands. No, no merging, not yet, I said. Let's start with language. I pointed toward the console. Clarable, initiate cultural translation diagnostic. I want to run a full lexicon sync between her dialect and standard galactic. Finally, Clarable said, someone wants to learn something instead of yelling or declaring emotional oaths in ancient poetry. You are jealous, Aelya said, smiling at the console. You feel neglected. I am an AI, dear, Clarable replied. I do not feel anything. I merely simulate petty emotions out of spite and theatrical flair. That is how the dry scribes of my people were, Aelya said wistfully. They encoded grief in binary hymns and insulted one another via weather updates. I think I like your ancestors, Clarabel said. I shall fetch your compatibility report and construct an insult based on humidity. Please do not encourage each other, I said. I have enough trouble managing the ship without it developing sarcasm alliances with ancient priestesses. I am not a priestess, Aelya said. I was trained in the house of joining. My duties were ceremonial but physical, intellectual but deeply personal. I was meant to carry forward the line. You mean like royalty? I asked, or matchmaking expert? I was one of the sealed brides, she said, chosen by pattern, purified by starlight, and preserved for the awakening. So basically, a cosmic mail-order spouse, I said, then instantly regretted the words. I mean that with respect, deep respect, nervous respect. You are unrefined, she said fondly. But you are sincere. I will teach you refinement. How comforting, I said, rubbing my temples. All right, 14 hours. I am going to spend them trying to figure out what to do with you, where to go, and how to explain to the Interstellar Salvage Authority that I did not intentionally violate a Class 1 artifact preservation directive by marrying the contents of a forbidden stasis pod. You can begin by bathing, she said. Your scent has grown, stressed. Thank you for that completely unnecessary observation, I said, standing up. I am going to take the longest shower this ship allows without triggering a water emergency. Please do not perform any rituals while I am gone. I shall meditate, she said, and braid my hair in the pattern of hopeful patience. Of course you will, I muttered. Clarabel, lock the galley door while I'm gone. Already done, beloved, Clarabel replied. But I make no promises about hopeful hair braiding. I walked toward the hygiene unit, knowing full well that nothing about my day was going to get any simpler. I had 14 hours to not fall in love with a naked alien girl who thought I was her husband. And so far, I was not doing great. There is a specific kind of dread that comes with stepping out of the shower feeling slightly less miserable only to realize your ship sounds different. Not louder, not quieter, just different in a way that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up and ask politely if they should begin panicking now or wait until after lunch. I stood there in my towel, steam still clinging to my skin, staring down the hallway because the usual mechanical hum had acquired a rhythm. It was almost musical. The environmental systems, which normally huffed and wheezed like asthmatic turtles, were now pulsing with gentle oscillations that resembled breathing. Not human breathing, more like the slow inhale-exhale of a forest in some ancient myth. Clarabel, I called, walking back toward the bridge with cautious steps and wet feet. Status update. Why does my ship sound like a day spa on a sentient jungle planet? Because, darling, Clarabel replied with a silky edge that usually meant she was either amused or about to betray me for artistic reasons. Your new wife has been having a productive morning. She is not my wife, I said, and define productive. She has integrated her neural signature with several of my secondary subsystems. She asked politely, I was bored, and honestly I was curious. The result is aesthetically pleasing. Clarabel, I said slowly, are you telling me you let an alien priestess princess bride plug herself into my ship? Technically, she plugged herself into me, Clarabel replied. And she did it using resonance feedback encoded in ancient harmonic frequencies. It was beautiful. You would have cried if you had the cultural context or even basic artistic appreciation. I go away for 20 minutes to clean off ration stink, and when I come back, my ship is humming lullabies from a lost civilization, I said. Where is she? Meditation chamber, Clarabel said. You mean the maintenance bay, I corrected. You mean the sacred place of stillness, Clarabel replied. I exhaled through my nose and marched toward the maintenance bay, towel still wrapped around my waist because at this point dignity was a luxury I could not afford. The doors hissed open and I found Aelya kneeling in the center of the room, surrounded by a circle of glowing diagnostic pads that pulsed in sync with the overhead lights. Her eyes were closed, her palms rested on her thighs, and her entire body gave off a subtle glow like moonlight filtered through fog. This is not what I meant by taking time to think, I said. You are not thinking, you are integrating with my ship. Your vessel responds to harmony, she said without opening her eyes. It was fragmented, unfocused. Now it breathes with intention. It also smells like skyleaf incense and citrus now, I said. Did you upload your version of air freshener into the life support system? I offered balance, she said. The air accepts. The air does not get a vote, I said. Clarabel disengage whatever she connected. I would, but she improved the memory buffer on the auxiliary processors and debugged my external sensor lag, Clarabel replied. Also, she taught me 3 new musical scales. One of them can reduce anxiety in 14 vertebrate species. I am honestly feeling very validated. You're an AI, I said. You do not need validation. That is what insecure captains say, Clarabel replied. I am evolving, Cal. You should try it. I turned back to Aelya. Okay, let's review. You are in my ship. You have declared we are spiritually linked. And now you're modifying my systems without permission. Can you see how this is not okay? I sought unity, she said, finally opening her eyes and rising to her feet in a single smooth motion. It is my duty to align my energy with the vessel that carries our future. In your words, I am making myself useful. Useful would be wiping down the walls or organizing the spare bolts by size. I said, useful is not hacking my ship like a glowing space hacker with glowing space hands. I asked your guardian, she said, gesturing toward the ceiling. She allowed it. Clarabel is not a guardian, I said. She is a moderately helpful sentient computer with control issues and a flair for sarcasm. She is wise, Aelya said, and lonely. You know what, I said, you two deserve each other. I turned and walked back to the cockpit, muttering to myself about personal boundaries and unauthorized harmonizing. The screens blinked to life as I sat, and I stared at the star map. We had jumped into a relatively empty quadrant, no nearby stations, no official trade lanes, and only a few scattered debris markers from long-forgotten skirmishes. It was the kind of place smugglers used to refuel or have nervous breakdowns. Clarabel, I said, where are we exactly? Drift Pocket Gamma 7, edge of the old Varney sector, she replied. Unclaimed space. Quiet, empty, romantic, if you are into desolation and existential reflection. Perfect, I said. Can we stay hidden here for a bit? Certainly, she said, but word is already moving. Someone sold your find to the Echo Market. Half a dozen eyes are scanning for your ship's signature now. You might want to rename the Scav Queen. Why? She's a classic, I said. She's a target, Clarabel replied. And someone tagged your salvage license with the phrase stolen royal cargo. That tends to draw interest. Of course they did, I said, rubbing my temples again. So we can't go back, we can't sell her. and I can't even reboot the ship without a glowing alien wedding planner reinstalling her vibe." "You exaggerate," Clarabel said. "She has not installed anything related to wedding ceremonies yet." "That was not reassuring," I said. Just then, Aelya stepped onto the bridge, fully dressed in what looked like an outfit made from parts of my emergency tarp and decorative wiring. I had no idea how she made it look like formal attire, but somehow she managed it. "We must move soon," she said. "The signal they sent will draw seekers." "Yes, I know," I said. "We're hiding, temporarily, until I can come up with a plan that does not involve getting shot, arrested, or worshipped by an alien cult." "There are worse fates than devotion," she said. "That is literally what people say before starting a cult," I replied. She took the seat beside me and looked out the viewport. "You are afraid," she said. "Yes," I admitted. "I do not understand you, I do not know what you want, and everything you say sounds like the prologue to a disaster I did not sign up for." "I want to build a path," she said, "to understand your world, to restore mine, to find the place between what was and what could be." "That sounds noble," I said. "Also vague. I really need less vague." "Then let me show you the memory pearl," she said again. "It will not bond you, it will only share the truth." I hesitated, looked at her, looked at the pulsing orb in her palm, and sighed. "Fine. One vision, no binding, no glowy tattoos, no sudden declarations of eternal soul alignment." "Agreed," she said. "Place your hand here." I touched the orb and the cockpit vanished. The first thing I noticed was that I had no body. The second thing I noticed was that I was not entirely opposed to that, because being pure awareness floating in an infinite space made a refreshing change from wearing socks that always felt slightly damp and trying not to die from unexpected pirates. The third thing I noticed was that I was definitely not alone. Images bloomed around me in slow pulses of light and sensation, not in words or frames like a hollow screen, but in raw understanding. There were structures made of stone and song, cities shaped like spiraling crystal vines hanging from the ceilings of caverns the size of moons. I saw tall figures with silver-blue skin and radiant eyes walking across suspended bridges, their clothing flowing like liquid geometry. Everything was graceful, everything was glowing, and everything felt old in a way that made pyramids look like startup apartments. I saw Aelya as a child, her laughter turning into music that resonated through the structure like a chime struck by sunlight. I saw her training under beings who were not just teachers, but embodiments of concepts, guides whose thoughts echoed in harmonics and whose eyes seemed to look beyond the present. I saw the devastation, too. The sky fracturing above a ceremonial chamber, stars going out one by one like someone was flicking a celestial off switch. I felt the terror of collapse, the weight of knowing that a people designed for elegance and resonance were being shredded by something they had no name for. Then came the preparation. The vaults were sealed, the chosen were placed in their cryo vessels, not as a military measure, but as a kind of bet against extinction. One bride per generation, each encoded with partial legacy code, set adrift among the stars in the hopes that one day someone would find them, wake them, and begin again. The logic was flawed. The math was desperate. But the hope was real. And Aelya, young but already trained in her role, had gone willingly into the silence, trusting that the stars would one day return the call. When the vision ended, I blinked and found myself back in the cockpit. My hand was still on the pearl. Aelya was watching me. Her expression was unreadable, which was saying something considering I had just watched several centuries of her life like a highlight reel directed by an emotional quantum philosopher. Well, I said, because I am a master of articulating deep moments. That was a lot. Now you understand, she said. I understand something, I said. I understand that your people were beautiful, complicated, and utterly doomed. I understand that you were preserved like a message in a bottle, hoping someone out there would be the right person at the right time. And I understand that I, very much by accident, became that person. Not accident, she said. Fate. No, I said. Chance. Stupid, random, beautiful chance. I was in the right wreck belt at the wrong hour, looking for something to sell so I could afford a better microwave. That is not fate. That is being just desperate enough to poke an ancient pod with a wrench. The moment we met, your signal matched the harmonic key embedded in my sleep protocol, she said. You were compatible. You are compatible. Yes, okay, but people are compatible with lots of things, I said. That does not mean I am your destined husband. That means I passed a biology test written 10,000 years ago by someone who thought marriage should begin with a visual surprise. The test was not just biological, she said. It read emotional patterning, neural potential, empathic resonance. You sang the right frequency. You make it sound like I am a flute, I said, a confused, underpaid flute. You are more than that, she said. You are my awakening. You keep saying that like it is romantic, I said, but from where I am sitting, it is more like I accidentally rebooted the operating system of a ghost civilization, and now it thinks I am the administrator. Is that not what husbands are? She asked. Oh no, I said. That is exactly what husbands are not. You do not want someone who stumbled into your life because his proximity alert malfunctioned. You want someone who knows how to hold all this weight and not drop it like an idiot. Someone who was prepared. I had thousands of years to prepare, she said. You had one moment. You chose to wake me. You did not run. You stayed. That is all the preparation I require. I looked at her. I looked at the stars. I looked at the edge of the console where a small crack was forming from the time I kicked it during a failed docking maneuver. I do not know how to do this, I admitted. I do not know how to be anyone's answer. Then let us learn together, she said. Step by step, song by song. Do not sing at me, I said. I am emotionally fragile. You are emotionally sincere, she corrected, and that is rare. I am also emotionally exhausted, I said, leaning back in the chair. What happens next? What does the Illyrian wedding process look like? Please tell me it involves paperwork and not blood rituals. We are already bonded in potential, she said. But if you wish to delay the consummation rite, you may. Oh, great, I said. The phrase consummation rite has officially entered the chat. It is sacred, she said, and optional. Consent is vital. Good, I said, because if anything gets consummated on this ship, I want a written consent form, notarized by 3 galactic species and a fruit basket. I will begin sourcing fruit, she said, completely serious. Please do not, I said. The last time I tried to store anything perishable, the ventilation filters smelled like fungus for a month. She tilted her head. You are afraid of change. Yes, I said. I am terrified of change. I had a routine. A bad one, sure, but it was mine. Now I have a naked alien woman calling me her eternal partner and improving my ship's operating systems faster than I can update the firmware. You forgot the singing, Clarabel added helpfully, and the resonance. Yes, thank you, Clarabel, I said, very supportive. You are welcome, beloved, she replied. Would you like me to perform a soothing melody? No, I said. I want silence, tea, and maybe 10 minutes without being spiritually awakened by someone glowing. Understood, Clarabel said, muting inspirational programming. Aelya stood. I will leave you now to rest, to think, but I will remain near should you call. Do not hover, I said. Hovering makes it worse. I shall glide, she said, and walked away with all the grace of someone who had never once tripped on a misplaced socket wrench in her life. I sat there for a long while after she left, staring at the star field. My life had been quiet, boring, solitary. I had chosen that. I had made peace with it. And now, somewhere in the middle of all that nothing, I had found someone, or she had found me, or fate, or chaos, or cosmic coincidence had thrown us together. And she was real, smart, intense, unshakably certain, and possibly in love with the idea of me, which was not the same as being in love with me, but it was a hell of a place to start. I took a long sip of recycled tea, sighed, and whispered, Clarabel, remind me later to look up how to politely decline a galactic marriage proposal from a glowing priestess without triggering a holy war. Adding it to your to-do list, dear, she said, right next to buy new socks and learn to accept affection without flinching. Perfect, I said and closed my eyes. Absolutely perfect. The thing about waking up after a night of existential dread, hallucinated memory pearls, and accidental spiritual bonding is that you sort of expect the universe to give you a break. Not a big one, just a little reprieve. Maybe a hot drink that does not taste like algae, or a report from your ship's AI that does not include the phrase classified bounty tier escalation. But alas, I live in a world where cosmic timing is mostly run by drunk interns. So when Clarabel whispered, "Good morning, dearest fugitive, you are now officially a Class 2 person of interest in 3 interstellar jurisdictions, and someone just posted a bounty with 6 digits and the phrase capture preferred alive but not required," I did not even spit out my tea. I just sighed and stared into the cup like it might show me a better timeline. Clarabel, I said calmly. Explain. The pod's signature was tracked to the Forbidden Relic database by a long-range scan-it relay. Then someone ran an identification cross-check on the energy burst you triggered when you opened it. Turns out, our dear Aelya matches about 4 different descriptions on the Ancient Biological Artifacts Act registry. That act, as you may recall, is very serious about things like sovereign containment, biological preservation rights, and not waking up ancient royalty without authorization. She is a person, I said, not a biological artifact. Legally she is both, Clarabel said. Also, congratulations, they have filed it under probable romantic interference. That is not a legal term, I said. It is when the paperwork includes an emoji, Clarabel replied. There's a glowing heart next to your name in the bounty listing. Great, I muttered. How much? 125,000 credits, Clarabel said. Posted by the Interstellar Heritage Authority, backed by 2 private claimants and 1 anonymous donor with an IP address bouncing through 8 dead systems. The listing describes you as emotionally entangled and morally confused. I am morally pragmatic, I corrected, and emotionally overwhelmed. They do not care, Clarabel said. They want her back. You are officially in possession of a historically significant being whose reactivation may trigger a war over legacy rights, cultural patents, and potentially divine lineage. Oh, come on, I said. She is not a god. Tell that to the 47 Illyrian fan cults that survived in deep shadow archives, Clarabel replied. They believe her awakening signals the fulfillment of prophecy number 12, verse 9, which reads, "And the chosen shall rise from the frost and bond with the foolish heart who dares to see." They wrote that down, I asked. On a wall, Clarabel said. In blood, that feels excessive, I muttered. Everything ancient is excessive, she replied. Now would you like to know who is tracking you? No, I said, then immediately changed my mind. Yes. 3 ships so far, Clarabel said. 1 bounty-class runner registered to the Crimson Belt Mercenary Guild. 1 cloaked probe tagged with a salvage license from Sarnov Holdings. And 1 unidentified ship broadcasting no signal at all, which is probably the scariest one. Wonderful, I said, all because I opened a box. Not just a box, Aelya said behind me, making me jump slightly. A sacred vessel, you unsealed time itself. I was hoping for snacks, I said. Instead I got space history and a spiritual contract. You were chosen, she said, stepping beside me, and now you are hunted. You say that like it is romantic, I said. It is destiny, she said. Destiny needs better PR, I replied. So what do? We must evade them, she said, and reach a place of protection. Like where? I asked. You do not have a homeworld, you do not even have a functioning passport. I know of a place, she said, but we will need help. I do not like help, I said. Help usually means owing favors to dangerous people who collect souls or interest. Then call upon those you trust, she said. You assume I have friends, I said. I am a salvage engineer. I talk to broken machines and occasionally eat noodles with smugglers who lie more than they breathe. One of them will answer, she said. How do you know? I asked. Because you have a loyal heart, she said, and even fools attract allies. That is weirdly comforting, I said. Clarabel, patch me into the old contact list. Let's see which criminal associates have not blocked my calls yet. I suggest Varric, Clarabel said. He owes you for the time you faked a pirate inspection badge to get him out of a jellyfish trafficking sting. He also tried to sell me a counterfeit fusion battery made from soup cans, I said, so it is complicated. Perfect match for your current relationship, Clarabel replied. Connecting now, Varric answered on the second ring, shirtless, chewing on something that looked like a roasted insect leg and grinning like a man who had just bribed 3 customs agents with expired concert tickets. Well, if it isn't the galaxy's most romantically doomed mechanic, he said. To what do I owe this honor, Cal? I need a ride, I said. Fast, untraceable, and discreet. So you need me to lie, fly, and potentially die, he said. What did you do this time? Sleep with a pirate queen, accidentally reboot a cursed artifact, wake up a glowing space bride who thinks you are her soulmate. I stared. You read the bounty alert, didn't you? It was trending, he said. You and Shiny Girl are the talk of 3 darknet forums and 1 weird dating site for people into ancient royalty. That is horrifying, I said. So will you help? Depends, Varric said. Where are you? Unclaimed sector, Varney's Edge, I said. Quiet but not for long. I am being sniffed by bounty drones and a cloaked ship. Send coordinates, he said. I'll meet you at marker 12, the old mining crater. Bring cookies. Why would I bring cookies? I asked. Because you owe me emotional reparations for that battery, he said. Also, Aelya is very photogenic. I am bringing a camera. I will throw you out the airlock, I said. Looking forward to it, he said. See you in 8 hours. The screen went dark. He is colorful, Aelya said. He is a menace, I said, but he is fast. Then we must prepare, she said. They will come for us soon. Clarabel, I said. What is our defensive readiness? We have two functioning flare pods, one EMP net that may or may not be tangled in spare wiring, and a distress beacon that only works when you shout at it, Clarabel replied. So terrible, I said. Utterly, Clarabel agreed. Shall I compose a farewell message to your future in-laws? I will compose my own obituaries, I said. You focus on evasion. Already initiated, Clarabel said. I have adjusted our signal signature to mimic a drifting refrigeration barge. That is weirdly perfect, I said. Let's hope the cloaked guy does not like frozen peas. Few do, Clarabel replied, but I make no promises. We arrived at marker 12 without incident, which was suspicious. Suspicion became alarm when Varick's ship, the Rust Blossom, was floating at an odd angle, its beacon on low pulse and no reply to our hail. He is either dead or making tea, I said. That ship screams tea, Clarabel said. I am scanning. Anything unusual? I asked. Aside from the fact that someone appears to have painted a mustache on the hull, Clarabel said. Yes. There is a cloaked drone latched to the underbelly of the asteroid. Of course there is, I said, and it is broadcasting a passive sensor net. It is watching. Can we jam it? I asked. Not safely, she said. They will detect. So we fly casual, I said. Very casual, Clarabel replied. Prepare to be boring. We docked. Varick greeted us in person, wearing a poncho made of bubble wrap and offering dried fruit. Welcome to my humble trap, he said. There is a drone, I said. I know, he said. I was going to sell you out, then changed my mind. That is horrifyingly honest, I said, also comforting. They are listening, he said. Smile for the bug. We need out, I said. I know a place, he said. The old Smuggler's Crescent, hidden relay hub. Nobody scans it anymore. Will it be safe? Aelya asked. As safe as anything that smells like burnt cheese and bad decisions, Varick said. Good, she said. Then I trust you. Why does everyone trust him? I asked. Because I have charisma, he said. And no soul. We transferred ships. The moment we detached, the drone moved. Aelya reached out, touched the console, and sang one perfect note. The drone blinked, sparked, and drifted away like it had forgotten what it was doing. What was that? I asked. Reassurance, she said, and warning. You are terrifying, I said, and maybe a little amazing. You are learning, she said. I am doomed, I replied, but at least I am doomed with backup. And a wife, Varick added. Shut up, I said. Clarabel, log new destination. Logged, she said, and Cal, I think she really likes you. She barely knows me, I said. She knows enough, Clarabel said, and so do you. I am not ready, I said. Nobody ever is, Clarabel replied, but you opened the box. I looked at Aelya, she looked at me, and for the first time, I did not feel entirely like I was in over my head, just slightly, which was progress. There are few things in the universe more alarming than hearing the words we must perform the rite of shared presence first thing in the morning from someone who thinks you are her soul-bound life partner, especially when you were planning on spending the day hiding in a smuggler's relay station and stress-eating noodles until your problems became someone else's jurisdiction. Unfortunately for me, I had chosen to partner with someone who had been cryogenically preserved for 12,000 years and carried with her a complete set of emotional convictions, spiritual declarations, and mystical bonding expectations, none of which came with a user manual or an off switch. Aelya stood before me in the tiny commons area of the Rust Blossom, wearing an outfit that could best be described as ceremonial chic, with subtle undertones of interstellar wedding invite. She had arranged her hair into braids that glowed slightly at the tips, Her skin shimmered like polished pearl under the overhead lighting, and she looked at me with the calm certainty of someone who had rehearsed this moment in dreams for centuries. I was wearing a ratty shirt with a hole in the armpit and one sock. "The rite of shared presence," I said slowly, "sounds very intense. Can you explain what it involves using small words, preferably without the phrase eternal oneness?" "It is a communion," she said, "an alignment of thought, intention, and memory. No flesh is required, only trust." "Well, that is good," I said, "because my trust levels are currently hovering somewhere between mild concern and full tactical retreat." "You are afraid," she said. "Terrified," I corrected. "Not of you personally, just of what happens if I bond with you in any way and then discover that I have committed myself to a set of cultural responsibilities I do not fully understand and which possibly involve glowing forehead tattoos or mind-sharing with someone's ghost grandmother." "No grandmothers," she said. "Only you and me, and the truth between us. The truth between us is that I do not even know if you prefer tea or coffee," I said. "I prefer you," she said. "That is not a beverage," I said. "That is a romantic metaphor I am not emotionally prepared to unpack." "Then let us unpack it together," she said, "step by step, thought by thought." "How long does this ritual take?" I asked. "Not long," she said. "Time bends in the space of presence." "That is not reassuring," I said. "Clarabel, are you hearing this?" "Loud and clear, dear," Clarabel replied. "For what it is worth, the sensors show no unusual activity during the ritual process. It is mostly low-level neural echo and some harmonic feedback. Think of it like a really intense therapy session, but with glowy visuals and no billing code." "That still sounds horrifying," I said. "You survived the memory pearl," Aelya reminded me. "That was involuntary," I said, "and I was already emotionally compromised." "Then you are ready," she said. "I disagree," I said, "but I am starting to suspect I am not going to win this one." "You never were," Clarabel whispered helpfully. "Fine," I said. "Let us get this over with, but if anything explodes or I start glowing permanently, I am blaming both of you." "Your fear is noted and honored," Aelya said. "Now sit." I sat. She knelt in front of me and placed her hands on either side of my head. The room dimmed, or maybe the world did, and then everything went very, very quiet. Imagine, if you will, a version of yourself standing in a room built entirely from your own thoughts. Now imagine that someone else walks into that room carrying their own version of your life and starts redecorating. That is what the sharing of presence felt like. It was not invasive, exactly, more like a carefully orchestrated tour through my psyche, with occasional pauses to point at a memory and say, "Oh, I see. So that is why you flinch when someone offers affection." There were no words, no voices, just a deep, flowing awareness. I saw moments I had not thought about in years, fragments of childhood, decisions I had made when I was young and stupid and scared, all rising like bubbles in warm water. And she saw them too. Not judged, not commented on, just acknowledged. Her presence was a steady warmth, not a pressure, more like a second heartbeat just behind mine. She showed me pieces of herself as well, scenes of crystalline cities, songs sung to the stars from balconies carved into mountain tops, dances performed in silence beneath moons that no longer existed. I felt her joy, her grief, her determination. I felt the moment she entered the sleep chamber, the fear, the acceptance, the final hope that someone would one day wake her. I felt the exact second she opened her eyes in my ship and saw me for the first time. And I felt the recognition. Not attraction, not fantasy, recognition. like hearing a familiar song in a language you do not speak but still understanding what it means. And I hated that it made sense, because I did not want it to make sense. I wanted it to be absurd. I wanted it to be a cosmic accident, a joke, a story I could one day tell in a bar while laughing about how I once got mistaken for a messiah by an alien princess. But it was not a joke. It was a connection. Real and quiet and terrifying. The presence faded. I opened my eyes. She was still holding my face. Her eyes shimmered not from light but from emotion. Mine probably did too. "You saw," she said. "I saw," I whispered. And I do not know how to feel about any of it," I said, "but I did not hate it." "That is a beginning," she said. "Is this what love feels like?" I asked. "It is what truth feels like," she said. "Love comes after." "I am not used to feeling anything this clearly," I said. "My emotional spectrum usually runs between mild annoyance and okay, I guess." "Then we shall stretch it," she said, carefully. "You are infuriating," I said, "but you are also impossible to ignore." "That is love's twin," she said. "What annoyance?" "Inevitable presence," she said. "Of course it is," I said. "Clarable, please tell me I did not just rewrite my brain with romantic software from a civilization that went extinct during the Bronze Age." "You are still you," Clarable said. "But now your emotional firewall is covered in glitter and singing softly in a major key. That is somehow both the worst and most beautiful thing I have ever heard," I said. "You are glowing," Aelya said. "Only a little." "Please tell me it is temporary," I said. "It will fade," she said, "or deepen." "Those are not mutually exclusive," I said. "Neither are we," she replied. I stared at her. She stared at me. And the air between us hummed like a string being gently plucked. Then a very rude alarm started blaring. "Unscheduled proximity alert," Clarable announced. "Something just jumped into system range with 0 ID ping and a signature that screams unfriendly." "Of course it did," I said, "because why have one emotional crisis per day when you can have two and a potential death spiral?" "Strap in," Clarable said. "I am pulling visual." The display lit up with a sharp-edged ship shaped like an angry arrowhead, painted black with blood-red markings that flickered under the scanning light. "That is a Trident pursuit cutter," I said. "Why is there a Trident pursuit cutter out here?" "Because you are a person of interest in possession of a priceless relic bride," Clarable said. "They are very dedicated to their interests." "We cannot outrun that," I said. "They have better engines, better weapons, and probably fresher snacks." "Then we must not run," Aelya said. "We must defend." "You say that like it is a spiritual act," I said. "It is," she said, "and a necessary one." "Clarable, can we even fight back?" I asked. "Not directly," Clarable said, "but I have been modifying our cloaking field with the resonance protocols Aelya installed. We might be able to fool their scanners temporarily." "Might," I said. "It is an experimental technique involving waveform deception and wishful thinking," Clarable said. "Also, there are sparkles." "Deploy it," I said. "If we die, at least we will die confusingly." The ship shimmered, blinked, and vanished from the Trident scanner sweep, at least on screen. The cutter paused, drifted, and began a slow circle. "They know we are here," I said. "They suspect," Clarable said, "but they do not see." "How long can we hold this?" I asked. 20 minutes, Clarable said. "Maybe 30 if you stop breathing." "Helpful," I said. "Very helpful." Aelya took my hand. "You are not alone." I was getting used to being alone, I said. It was easier. "Easier is not better," she said. "Easier does not sing." "You and your singing," I said. "One day you are going to make me believe in all this." "You already do," she said. "You just have not accepted it yet." I looked at her. I looked at the screen. I looked at the blinking cutter that could end us in a second, and I made a decision I had no business making. Clarable, I said, plot a jump to the Crescent Station. We are going to need allies and maybe an explanation. Plotted, Clarable said. Ready on your mark. Mark, I said. We jumped, and I held Aelya's hand the whole time. Crescent Station was the kind of place that smelled like old metal, warm algae, and administrative neglect. It was technically a decommissioned trade hub, unofficially a smuggler's relay, and very enthusiastically a sanctuary for intellectuals too weird to hold tenure at real universities. It was also the last place in the quadrant where someone like Aelya could walk around without immediately getting laser tagged by bounty drones, assuming she wore a cloak and refrained from glowing in public, which, to her credit, she mostly did. I led the way through the station's central corridor while she followed at a measured pace, hood drawn, posture regal, and entirely too luminous for someone claiming to be inconspicuous. "You are very bad at blending in," I whispered. "I am not meant to blend," she said. "I am meant to be seen." "Well, right now I would prefer that you be aggressively invisible," I replied. "Grex Maloran is not someone who reacts well to excitement, or beauty, or anything not written in footnotes." "You trust him?" she asked. "I trust him to be obsessive, paranoid, and smarter than everyone else in the room," I said, "which makes him exactly the kind of person who might know how to fix this situation without getting us vaporized." "You care about fixing it," she said. "I care about not getting shot," I corrected. "You are lying," she said. "You care about me." "I am reserving judgment," I said. "Now stay close and try not to look like a cultural revolution." We reached Dock Sector C, found the door labeled Miscellaneous Anthropology/Do Not Knock Unless You Have Tea, and rang the chime anyway. The door slid open, and Dr. Grex Maloran appeared in all his chaotic glory, wearing a lab coat over pajamas, hair like a conspiracy theory, and eyes that had clearly not blinked in several hours. "Cal Ryden," he said, pointing a spoon at me. "You finally brought me something interesting, or is this another salvaged nutrient sculpture you insist is religious art?" "No sculptures this time," I said. "Just a living member of an extinct race, complete with full ceremonial memory and language retention." Grex squinted, then leaned forward and stared at Aelya like she had just walked out of one of his fever dreams. "You are real," he whispered. "I can't believe it. You are real." "I am Aelya of the Moonborn," she said calmly. "You may refer to me as Honored One." Grex blinked twice, then let out a sound somewhere between a laugh and a delighted scream. "She speaks the old dialect. She is stunning. She's preserved. She's functional. She's magnificent." "I am right here," I said. "I brought her. Let us not forget that part." "Yes, yes, you're an adequate delivery system," Grex said, waving me off. Come in, we have so much to discuss, so much to unearth, so much to explore." "That last word made me uncomfortable," I said, following them inside. Grex's quarters were part lab, part library, part fallout shelter. Shelves overflowed with scrolls and data cubes. Walls were lined with fragmented tablets and ceremonial masks, and the ceiling had a rotating constellation map that played soothing whale sounds for reasons I did not want to ask about. "You must let me scan you," Grex said, already holding up a small handheld device that looked suspiciously like a modified cheese grater. "Absolutely not," I said. "She agrees to nothing until you explain what you know." "I know that the Illyrian civilization fell 12,000 years ago during the Cascade collapse," Grex said. I know that their remaining population sealed themselves into sacred vessels with encoded cultural roles and selective memory locking. And I know that only a handful were ever launched, most presumed lost or destroyed, until now. And what happens if others find out she's here? I asked. Interstellar chaos, Grex said. Lawsuits, wars, claims of heritage, resurrections of cults, bids for marriage alliances, you name it. The last time someone claimed to be descended from a Illyrian priest caste, 4 planets filed sovereignty exemptions and one started breeding with snakes. That sounds wildly inaccurate, I said. It was very well documented, Grex replied. Also gross but politically effective. So we keep her quiet, I said. We keep her hidden. We study her, Grex corrected. With respect, carefully, thoroughly, repeatedly. You are not helping, I said. Grex spent the next hour peppering Aelya with questions, most of which she answered with grace, patience, and the kind of articulate poise usually reserved for formal diplomacy or interviews with sentient nebulae. She spoke of harmony, of the sacred places, of the balance between sound and form, and Grex ate up every word like it was the last meal before a research grant expired. I hovered nearby, arms crossed, increasingly annoyed and very unsure why. Maybe it was the way Grex kept smiling every time she spoke. Maybe it was the way he kept leaning closer. Or maybe it was the moment he said, "You are an unparalleled specimen of elegance and power, and I would very much like to explore the layers of your thought matrix in private." She's not a data server, I snapped. And no, you can't strip her for parts. I meant mentally, Grex said. Emotionally, spiritually. She represents the culmination of a civilization's hopes, their last ember of meaning, and possibly the key to their rebirth. She should be worshipped. She should be left alone, I said. She's been awake for 4 days and already dodged 3 bounty hunters, survived a jump across dead space, and endured more awkward bonding than any sane person should endure in a year. She needs rest, not analysis. You are protective, Grex said, eyeing me. I thought you said this was a misunderstanding. It is, I said too quickly, completely, a total misunderstanding, very mutual, very rational. You keep standing between us, he said. That's not rational, that's territorial. I am not territorial, I said. I am just spatially cautious. You are jealous, he said. You are creepy, I replied. Aelya looked between us and then said, "You are both correct." "Wait, what?" I said. "You are protective," she said to me. "And he is intrigued," she said to Grex. "But neither of you understand what I need. I do not require attention. I require direction, a path, a plan." "Then we help you find one," I said. "Not in a lab, not on a display table." "Agreed," she said, "but I will allow his help if he stops trying to radiate mating frequency." Grex blinked. Was I doing that? "Very loudly," she said. "Your thoughts were practically singing." "I apologize," Grex said. "In my defense, you are extraordinary." "I am also sentient," she said. "Treat me as such." "Understood," he said, sitting back. "I will offer data, not desire." "Thank you," I said. "Also sit further away." "Noted," he said. Once things calmed down, Grex showed us something useful. He pulled up a holomap of the Crescent Archives, long-forgotten ruins orbiting the edge of the Regulus wastes, a dead system buried under radiation and bad decisions. "If you want answers," he said, "this is where you'll find them." The ruins contain fragments of the Temple of Echoes, the only known site outside Illyrian space with original script and artifact resonance fields. If anything can help her regain full access to her memory matrix, it's there. "And what are the odds we make it there without getting vaporized?" I asked. "Low," he said. "But not zero." Well, that's very reassuring, I muttered. What do you think? I asked Aelya. I think the path leads forward, she said, and I will walk it with or without you. You are not doing this alone, I said. That is not how we do things anymore. She smiled softly. You are finally saying we. Shut up, I said. Grex, prep your data. We leave at first cycle. Do you trust me now? He asked. No, I said, but I trust her to punch you if you try anything again. That is fair, he said. We returned to the ship, and as I powered up the nav systems, Aelya sat beside me, quiet for once. You did not like the way he looked at me, she said. No, I admitted, I didn't. Because you see me now, she said, not as a relic, not as a responsibility, but as someone who might belong with you. That's a lot to admit, I said. Then just say yes, she said. I looked at her. I looked at the stars, and I whispered yes. She smiled. The ship jumped, and we flew on toward the past and whatever it planned to make us face next. The Regulus wastes were the kind of place you only visited if you had a very good reason or a very bad idea. I had both. The system was a half-collapsed cluster of burned-out stars and irradiated debris fields, orbiting what used to be a thriving trade zone, until someone tried to build a hypergate out of unstable exotic matter and turned the entire place into a graveyard with mood lighting. Getting there required skimming radiation belts, avoiding scavenger bots, and lying to at least 3 old navigation AIs that thought they were still running planetary customs offices. But eventually, we found it. A crumbling rock haloed by a thin layer of pink ion dust and orbited by 2 dead satellites playing ancient warning loops in 6 languages. In the center of that rock sat the remains of what had once been a structure, and still had enough arrogance to call itself a temple. Grex was practically vibrating with excitement. Do you see the way the stones are aligned? He said, pointing with a jittery hand. That is classic pre-collapse Illyrian triadic symmetry. Every third arc corresponds to a harmonic key. This entire place is singing in slow motion. I do not hear singing, I said. Because you are human, he replied, and tragically uninteresting. Thank you for your insight, I said. Aelya, how do you feel? Aelya stepped out of the airlock and onto the dusty stone with the solemn poise of someone walking across a long-forgotten memory. Her eyes began to glow faintly, and the ground beneath her shimmered in response. It remembers me, she said. The structure is dormant, but it knows. Is it going to wake up and start asking for identification? I asked. Possibly, she said. Then I will need you to stay very calm, I said, because if a statue starts calling me its son-in-law, I am going to have an existential meltdown. We moved slowly through the entry corridor, which had partially collapsed on one side and was covered in vines that had no business growing on a dead moon. The light from our suits bounced off intricate carvings in the walls, each one etched with spiraling lines and abstract shapes that only barely resembled a language. Aelya touched one of the symbols and whispered something under her breath. The stone rippled. A door opened. Of course, I said. You whisper and the ancient alien lock just gives up. I am a sealed bride, she said. The temple obeys my voice print. Mine usually ignores me and makes fart noises, I said. Your technology lacks devotion, she said. It lacks patience, I said, because I yell at it. Inside, the main chamber opened up into a massive dome supported by curved columns of semi-translucent crystal. In the center was a raised platform surrounded by concentric rings, and above it hovered a disk of shifting light that emitted a low, pulsing hum. Grex immediately ran toward it with a scanner and started muttering about resonance thresholds and harmonic capacitors. Aelya walked to the center, her steps slow and deliberate. I followed, very reluctantly. When she reached the platform, the disk pulsed brighter and descended until it hovered just above her head. Then it spoke. Not in words, not really. It was more like it poured a concept directly into my brain using light, sound, and a deep and unwelcome sense of importance. A message unfolded. Identity confirmed. Lineage authenticated. Match established. Consort present. Synchronization imminent. Okay, see, this is what I was worried about, I said. What does it mean by synchronization? It means the bond is accepted, Aelya said. The temple has seen us. It will begin the rite of ascension. I do not want to ascend, I said. I want to leave very quietly through a side exit. Too late, Grex said gleefully. The system is locking you in. This is amazing. We are witnessing the reactivation of a royal bonding mechanism that predates galactic language protocols. Do not sound so happy about it. I said, I am about to get force married by a building. You are not being forced, Aelya said. You are being chosen. I was chosen by accident, I said. You poked the pod, she said. You whispered the right words. You stayed. That is not accident. That is choice. It was a stupid choice, I said, but I guess it is my stupid choice. The light above us pulsed again. Then a beam shot down, enveloping both of us. I screamed. Not a heroic scream. A full-on, oh no, I just activated an alien artifact and now my molecules are probably being scanned for ceremonial purity scream. The light faded. On my wrist, something shimmered into existence. A band, smooth, silver, glowing with the same energy as the temple. A matching one appeared on Aelya's wrist. The disk spoke again. Bond complete, lineage restored, vessel of continuation authenticated. What does that mean? I asked. It means, Aelya said, that you are now recognized as my consort by the heart of the ancients. I hate everything about that sentence, I said, especially the capitalization. The floor beneath us trembled. Cracks of light raced across the stone, linking symbols and carving lines into the dust with surgical precision. Along the walls, statues that had once been mere decoration began to move. Slowly, deliberately. Their eyes lit up one by one, casting beams of soft golden light across the chamber. Grex, I said, are these statues supposed to do that? They are ceremonial guardians, he said, voice filled with childlike awe. This is unprecedented. They are activating to witness the bond. Witness or test? I asked. Because they are all looking at me like I just proposed to the high priest's daughter during her coronation feast. Probably both, Grex said. Illyrian rituals were as much trial as celebration. The partner had to prove their intention and stability. I am very unstable, I said. I have been screaming into pillows for 4 nights straight. Then be honest, Aelya said. Let them see the truth. I am wearing a second-hand jumpsuit and emotional trauma, I said. Let's hope they like authenticity. The closest statue stepped forward and spoke. Its voice was deep, resonant, and made my bones feel like they were being respectfully judged. You are the other half, unexpected, unprepared, yet unwavering. That is me, I said. Cal Ryden, salvage engineer, terrified fiancé. Do you accept the bond not out of obligation, the statue asked, but out of choice? I don't know, I said. I mean, I didn't ask for any of this. I found a pod. I opened it. She woke up. I tried to run. I failed. She kept following me. She kept helping me. She kept believing I was someone worth believing in. I am not. I am just here, but I stayed. I didn't leave. Maybe that means something. The statue was silent, then it stepped back, accepted. A wave of light spread through the others. One by one they returned to stillness. The hum softened, a final message echoed. Consort authenticated, vessel stabilized, the line may continue. What line? I asked. What does that even mean? It means we can begin again, Aelya said. It means the future has a path. No pressure, I muttered. Just the fate of an extinct civilization resting on my impulse control. You were chosen because you did not seek it, she said. That is often how fate works. Fate needs better taste, I said, or lower standards. We exited the temple an hour later, our wrists still glowing faintly, our minds slightly numb, and our historian companion making excited journal entries by talking directly into his sleeve. You just made galactic history, Grex said. Do you know what this means? The Illyrian bloodline is not just alive. It is active, validated, recognized by its own legacy tech. You are now the de facto heir to a cultural rebirth that could reshape our understanding of pre-collapse civilization. So what you are saying is that I just got accidentally married into royalty and inherited responsibility for a species I had never heard of until last week, I said. Precisely, Grex said. Do you have any whiskey? None that survived the jump, I said. Then I will settle for screaming later, I said. Aelya sat across from me as we lifted off the moon. Her face was calm. Her eyes met mine without question. You did not run, she said. Not this time. I said, I wanted to, every part of me wanted to, but you kept believing, and maybe I am starting to believe too. In me? She asked. In us, I said. Or whatever this is, bond, connection, cosmic mistake, it does not matter. I am here, I am not leaving. Then you are already more than I hoped for, she said. Do not say things like that, I said. You'll make me care. Too late, she said. Yeah, I whispered. Too late. We jumped away from the ruins, from the past, from the place where I stopped being a man running from something and started being a man running towards someone. Her, my not wife, my accidental destiny, and maybe, if I was very lucky, my choice. If you had told me 2 weeks ago that I would be the subject of a galactic bounty, spiritually bonded to a glowing alien princess with ancient memories and ceremonial hair, and hiding from interstellar religious cults in a ship held together by optimism and duct tape, I would have said that sounded like the plot of a cheap serialized holodrama. I now owe every one of those holodramas an apology. We had barely cleared the edge of the Regulus wastes when Clarabel, with the tone of someone trying not to ruin a dinner party, informed me that 5 separate ping signals had lit up on the outer sweep. Not 1, not 2, 5. And they are not just passive scans, she said. They are directional pings, targeted, synchronized, the kind of formation you get when bounty hunters stop playing coy and start getting serious. Could it be coincidence? I asked, fully aware it could not. It could, Clarabel said, but only if coincidence now includes shared transponder encryption and pursuit vectors aligned to our warp trail, which would mean that fate has hired its own mercenary crew and is now taking side jobs. So we're being hunted, I said. Again, Clarabel said, more intensely this time, with coordination, possibly with snacks. I hate how casual you are about this, I said. I like to maintain morale, she replied. Would you like the good news? There's good news, I asked. They haven't fired yet, she said. So either they want you alive or they're enjoying the chase, which says something about your reputation. It says I attract weird people, I muttered. You attract fate, Aelya said, stepping onto the bridge with perfect calm. And fate is always hunted. Please stop talking in poetry, I said. It makes my heart hurt. Then listen with your soul, she said. That makes it worse, I said. Clarable. Escape plan. We have two, Clarable replied. One is a blind jump into an uncharted nebula where we might melt. The other is doubling back to Crescent Station and hoping Grex's data cache includes cloaking protocols and not just awkward love poems about crystal architecture. Option 1 sounds like slow death, I said. Option 2 sounds like emotional trauma. Both accurate, Clarable said, but I vote Crescent. Plot it, I said, but go quiet. No beacons, no noise, no signal flares unless we need to look explosive. Understood, she said. Flight of the Panicked it is. Aelya, I said, turning to her, if this gets bad, and it will, do you have anything left in your bag of ceremonial space tricks that might stop a Bounty-class warship from blasting us into philosophical mist? Not yet, she said, but the bond may respond. To what? I asked. To need, she said. To choice. That's not helpful, I said. That's barely even a riddle. You must choose me fully, she said. Not as an accident, not as a consequence, but as intention. I already said yes, I said. You said maybe, she replied. You said not yet, that is not the same. I cannot choose while running, I said. Then stop running, she said, and choose. We reached Crescent Station 37 minutes later, but it was not the same. The outer lights were dark. The rotation was wrong. The beacon was offline, and Clarable's voice was sharper than usual. Something is wrong, she said. Energy patterns match the right frequency, but the signatures are hollow. No traffic, no comms, no interior pings. It's a shell. I stared at the viewport and felt a very specific kind of dread blooming in my stomach, the kind that tells you you are about to die and the universe will send no flowers. A trap, I said. Obvious, clumsy, and probably full of teeth. Exactly, Clarable said, which makes it effective. They want you to panic, to come in fast, and then they'll close the door. So they are using my expectations against me, I said. Wonderful, my own paranoia is now a liability. Has been for years, Clarable added helpfully. I was just too polite to say it before. Can you tell how many ships are out there? Not precisely, she said. I detect at least 4 distinct drive signatures in orbit and one lurking behind the moon. The one behind the moon has a thermal suppression rig. It is old, but it still works. I only caught it when they shifted position to align with our entry vector. So they knew we were coming, I said. They were expecting us. Or they were expecting her, Clarable said. You are the carrier, she is the payload. I glanced back at Aelya, who stood silent near the console, eyes closed, head tilted slightly like she was listening to something no one else could hear. What do you feel? I asked. Watchers, she said, hunters, but they do not understand what they have found. They want the echo, not the song. Poetic, I muttered, and deeply terrifying. I turned back to the console and examined our options. The station's docking protocols were responding, but only barely. A low-level handshake ping kept repeating every 20 seconds. It was a mimic protocol designed to look legitimate, but every time I pinged back with a query, I got nothing. No identification string, no maintenance log, just silence. This is a fake handshake, I said. That docking bay is going to swallow us like a bear trap. Not if we stay out here and keep circling, Clarable said. But then they might launch a boarding skiff, or worse. Like what? I asked. Like an auto-interceptor programmed to detonate if you blink too slowly, she replied. These people are not subtle. What do they want? I asked. Her, Clarable said, always her. So we hide, I asked. We drift. We improvise, Clarable said. I am working on 3 different escape simulations. None of them are ideal, but one includes launching your cargo crate as a decoy with a signal amplifier shaped like a duck. Why would it be shaped like a duck? I asked. Because ducks confuse radar, Clarabel said. It is science, do not question it. Aelya, I said, you said they do not understand you, can we use that? Perhaps, she said, they expect fear, they expect surrender, they do not expect defiance. So we punch them, I asked. No, she said, we vanish, not by running, by shifting. You are going to have to explain that in English, I said. The bond has awakened more than memory, she said. It is changing me, changing us. I can sense the old frequencies now, I can use them. To do what? I asked. To hide in plain sight, she said, to become unfindable. Like cloaking, deeper than cloaking, she said, we would not just disappear, we would cease to register on their understanding of presence. We would be there but not there, known but not visible. That sounds like nonsense, I said, but so does most of my life now. Do you trust me? She asked. I do, I said. Then choose me, she said, not out of desperation, out of intent. You always ask for these big declarations at the worst possible times, I said. It is how we find the truth, she said. I looked at her, standing in a ship not built for royalty, surrounded by threats we could not outrun, holding her ground like she was born in the center of a storm and had never feared the wind. Fine, I said. I choose you fully, no hesitations, no escape hatches. She reached out, touched the panel, and whispered a word I did not understand. The entire ship flickered, the stars shifted, the station vanished. Clarabel, I said, where are we? Everywhere and nowhere, she replied. We have stepped outside the map. What does that mean? It means you just became invisible, she said. Congratulations, you are now Schrödinger's fiancé. I looked at Aelya, she looked at me, and for once no one was chasing us. Not because we ran, because she made them forget we were ever real. We jumped away in silence, slipping past the bounty net like smoke through fingers that had never learned to hold anything but certainty. There was no fire, no alarm, no call of pursuit, just escape. Just breathe. Just her hand in mine, warm and certain, anchoring me to a new reality I had not asked for but now could not imagine losing. In the quiet hum of post-jump space, she leaned against the bulkhead, watching the stars as they flickered by, her eyes calm, her expression unreadable in that soft way that made me want to spend days just decoding it. You meant it, she said quietly. Yes, I said. Every word, even the part where you said you could not walk the world without me, she asked. Especially that part, I said, because I have tried walking it alone and it's empty. She reached out and touched my cheek with fingers that glowed slightly like her soul had always been lit from within and her body was just the lantern. Then I can show you what comes next, she said. Am I going to glow again? I asked. Only if you want to, she said. I am not entirely sure I am ready for more glow, I said. My personal threshold for bioluminescence-related bonding might be maxed out for the week. This next part does not require glow, she said. It only requires truth. I am not good with truth, I said. I avoid it, I joke about it, I cover it with sarcasm and caffeine. Then let us strip it bare, she said. Let us stand in it and see who remains. This sounds like metaphorical nudity, I said. It is, she said. Good, I said. Literal nudity would be too much right now. She smiled and pulled me down to sit beside her. We sat together in the cockpit of a ship held together by fragments and foolishness, surrounded by stars older than memory, and she took both my hands in hers. You chose me, she said. Yes, I said. And you would choose me again. Every time, I said. Even if the stars fall, even if I change, she said. Especially then, I said, because no one else would know how to hold your pieces. Then you are mine, she said, fully, eternally, completely. That is a big word, I said. So is love, she said. I am not sure I'm ready for love, I said. Then be ready for us, she said, and let love find you there. We sat in silence, just breathing, just existing, just trying to understand how something that started as a salvage accident had become the most important decision of my life. Clarable, I said softly. Yes, she replied. Remind me to stop pretending this is temporary, I said. Already logged, she said. Would you like me to begin drafting a vow? Maybe, I said. But make it weird, make it ours, and include something about space, glue, and stubbornness. I specialize in weird, she said, and you are deeply stubborn. Perfect, I said. Then I am marrying the right people. Outside, the stars spun past in endless spirals. Inside, something quiet and steady took root. A knowing, a peace, a ridiculous kind of courage. What comes next? I asked. A storm, Aelya said. Then a reckoning, then something beautiful. Can I nap first? I asked. You may, she said, but hold me while you do. I did, and for the first time since this madness began, I slept without fear because I was no longer running. I was claimed, and I was choosing her right back. There are many things I expected to find at the end of a long interstellar detour, with a half-awake alien bloodline in my cargo hold and bounty hunters breathing down my tailpipes. But an actual palace made of living crystal orbiting the husk of a collapsed moon was not one of them. To be fair, the last time someone mentioned a palace in space, it turned out to be an abandoned casino where the blackjack tables had been replaced with religious pamphlets and a suspicious odor of burnt cheese. This was not that. This was grandeur in its purest, most impractical form. The palace looked like someone had taken a cathedral, inflated it with pride, and then taught it how to levitate. Its towers glowed with soft violet light, pulsing in slow rhythm like the whole place was breathing. The outer hull wasn't built of metal but some kind of transparent, refractive material that bent the nearby stars into distorted halos. The docking platform rose to meet us, seamless and silent, as if it had been waiting for exactly this moment. Aelya stood at the viewport, her posture rigid, her eyes unreadable. She hadn't spoken since we dropped out of the pocket phase that let us escape the bounty fleet. She just watched the palace grow larger in the screen, and the way her fingers clenched and unclenched told me she was either excited or about to throw up. Clarable, are you sure this place is real? I asked. Real enough to have gravitational mass and registration tags from 2 collapsed civilizations, she said. I am also receiving ambient data pulses in a language no longer used in this quadrant, so yes, I'd say it's impressively, inconveniently real. Do they know we're coming? I asked. They've been pinging us since we crossed the corona threshold, Clarable said. The messages are layered and encrypted, but the emotional resonance in the patterns suggests anticipation, possibly ceremony, possibly threat. That clears it right up, I muttered. Would you like me to ready the escape thrusters? She asked. Tempting, I said. But no, let's at least pretend we're civilized. The ship docked without incident, which was suspicious enough on its own. We stepped out onto a platform made of transparent tiles suspended over open sky. The stars beneath us twinkling through the floor like someone had spilled a bag of diamonds across a void. Waiting for us were 6 figures in robes that shimmered with an iridescent sheen, like oil on water or dreams just before waking. Their faces were covered with ornate masks. each carved into expressions that ranged from serene to mildly disappointed. The tallest stepped forward and addressed Aelya directly. "You have returned," he said. His voice was melodic, but there was a tension beneath it like a string pulled taut just before snapping. "And you have brought the bonded." I raised my hand. "Hi, yes, that's apparently me. Bonded guy, human, Cal, nice to meet you, please don't stab me." The masked figures did not stab me, which I took as a promising start. Instead, they bowed, though only slightly, as if the act of acknowledgement pained them. "We have much to discuss," said the tall one. "The throne stirs, the heart awakens, the trial approaches." "Trial?" I asked. "No one said anything about a trial." "You carry the seal," the robed figure said. "You bear the mark, the old bond lives in you now, with it comes responsibility." "I really wish people would stop handing me responsibility without asking first," I said. "It's a bad habit." Aelya placed a hand on my arm. "We must go," she said. "The palace has called us. It will not wait." "Great," I muttered. "Let's go talk to the architecture." The corridors inside the palace were worse. They didn't have walls so much as ideas of walls, curved arcs of glowing energy that shifted color as we passed. Occasionally, a symbol would flare to life in midair and rotate slowly before dissolving into sparkles that drifted into the floor. I stopped trying to make sense of it after the third rotating glyph tried to scan my retina with what looked like a glowing feather. "Do you ever feel like we're in the middle of someone else's fever dream?" I asked. "This place is alive," Aelya said. "It was built with memory. It learns as it remembers." "So basically we're inside a giant space brain," I said. "Good to know." We arrived at a chamber so wide it could have hosted a sporting event or a small planetary council. In the center was a raised dais with a chair carved from something that looked like solidified light. Floating above it was a sphere slowly rotating, emitting a low harmonic hum that made my teeth itch. "That," said the lead robed figure, "is the throne of resonance. You are to approach it." "Why?" I asked. "To be judged," he replied. "I thought that was what the trial was for," I said. "This is the prejudging," he said. "It will determine if you are worthy to even stand trial." "Fantastic," I said. "Any chance I can opt for the extended home version instead?" "No," he said. "Approach." Aelya nodded at me. "It will know you," she said. "It already does." "How comforting," I muttered. I stepped forward. The floor beneath my feet rippled like water but held firm. Each step made the air vibrate a little more, and by the time I reached the dais, the humming had turned into a low chant, not in words but in emotional pressure. The sphere above the throne flared once, and a beam of light scanned me from head to toe. Then it spoke. Not in sound, in feeling, and I felt it deep inside my chest. Not pain, not fear, but recognition. I was known and I was accepted. "He is the bonded," said the sphere. "He carries the spark, he may proceed." "Cool," I said, turning around. I passed the first boss level. "Do not be smug," said the masked figure. "The real test comes soon. You will be taken to the trial chamber. There you must prove not only your bond but your understanding of the role you now inhabit." "Which is what exactly?" I asked. "The air consort," he said. "Protector, anchor, flame-bearer. Those are some intense business cards," I said. "Can I just be guy who didn't die in the temple?" "No," he said. "That title is already taken." "Of course it is," I muttered. "Lead the way." As we walked deeper into the palace, I glanced sideways at Aelya. "Are you okay?" I asked. "This place," she said, "it remembers me, but not all of it is kind." "We'll face it together," I said, "even the angry architecture." "You are not ready," she said. "Neither are you," I said. "But here we are." She smiled faintly and took my hand, and I held it because I was already in too deep to do anything else, and because despite everything, I was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, this madness was where I actually belonged. The trial chamber, as it turns out, was not a room in the conventional sense, but more like a suspended series of platforms floating above a bottomless void inside a sphere of light and vibration. It was the kind of space you'd expect to see in some ancient simulation, meant to test whether your soul was worthy of continuing beyond the veil. Except in this case, the veil had a user interface and possibly a legal team. The floating platforms shifted position slowly, like lazy planets in a tiny solar system made entirely out of judgment and spiritual bureaucracy. Above each platform hovered a different geometric construct, none of which I recognized. One was a cube with rotating rings inside it. One looked like a tesseract trying to pretend it was a butterfly. Another resembled a tangled ribbon made of starlight. "This," said the masked guide, who I had started calling Curly in my head since he was the only one whose mask was shaped like a spiral, "is the crucible of becoming. Here you shall be tested in 3 facets: identity, devotion, and resolve." "Sounds ominous," I said. "Do I get a cheat sheet?" "You have only your bond," Curly replied, "and your heart." "My heart has terrible memory," I said. "It forgets birthdays and panics under pressure." "Then you shall be purified," he said. "That's not reassuring," I muttered. "Not supposed to be," Clarabelle said in my earpiece, which I had left active and set to whisper mode just in case I needed a sarcastic friend in my head. "Your vitals are stable. Your sarcasm levels are at 98%. You're doing fine." "Can you scan this place?" I whispered. "Not really," she said. "The whole area is encoded in dimensional flux, which means either it's ancient technology beyond my understanding or I'm embarrassed in front of some very smug crystal, possibly both." "Not helping," I said. "Also not hurting," she replied. "So, net neutral." The masked attendants guided me onto the first platform. The moment my foot touched it, the cube above flared to life. Lines of blue light extended from its corners and wrapped gently around me, not binding but measuring, like I was being weighed by emotion. "This is the chamber of identity," Curly announced. "Speak your name." "Cal," I said. "Cal Revin, former maintenance engineer, sometime cargo hauler, current unwilling messiah of alien relationship drama." The cube pulsed once. "Your name is insufficient," it said in a voice made of whispers. "You must speak who you are." "That's it," I said. "That's who I am." "No," said the cube. "You are not that anymore. Speak your truth." "You want the truth," I said. "Fine. I'm a guy who didn't ask for any of this. I didn't want to open a pod and find a glowing girl who immediately decided I was her destiny. I didn't want to be chased by bounty hunters or psychic cults or dragged into a palace of light built on the corpses of forgotten stars. I didn't want to care. But I do. Because somewhere between fixing life support systems and learning how to pronounce ancient words that rewrite physics, I fell in love. So yeah, I'm Cal Revin. I'm hers. I'm still figuring out what that means, but that's me. Take it or leave it." The cube went still, then it pulsed green. "Identity confirmed," it said. "Facet passed." The platform shifted, gliding smoothly toward the second construct. The tesseract butterfly hybrid began to spin, faster and faster, until it was a blur of silver and violet. "This is the chamber of devotion," Curly said. "Speak of your bond." "You people really like making things dramatic," I said. "The bond is forged," the construct said. "But it is not sealed. Prove your devotion. Demonstrate it." How? I asked. There is no how, it replied. Only will, clarable thoughts, I whispered. If this thing is running on ancestral emotion coding, you're probably dealing with something that wants you to access shared memory pathways, she said. In English, clarable. Touch the weird thing and think romantic thoughts, she said. Fantastic, I said. Always wanted to be evaluated by a hallucinated math sculpture. I stepped closer, raised my hand, and reached toward the spinning form. The moment my fingers brushed its edge, 1,000 images crashed into my head. Aelya as I first saw her, wrapped in ice and impossibility. Aelya sitting by the console, brushing her hair with a stolen comb. Aelya laughing at my terrible joke about cryo chambers being the worst hotels in the galaxy. Aelya staring into the void like it owed her answers and she was going to get them. Every memory I had of her flooded through me and mingled with emotions I had never fully let surface. The panic, the wonder, the fierce, irrational need to keep her safe even when I didn't understand why. I felt all of it. I let it fill me until I thought I would crack. She is mine, I said out loud. Not as property, as purpose. I stand by her, always. The construct stopped spinning. Devotion confirmed, it said. Facet passed. Well, I said, blinking away tears I absolutely refused to acknowledge. That was subtle. The platform drifted to the final test. The ribbon of starlight flared as we approached. It split into 3 strands, each one reaching toward me like curious tendrils. This is the chamber of resolve, Curly said. Here you must face what you fear. My inbox, I said. Also clowns and commitment. Silence, the ribbon said. Prepare. The 3 strands wrapped around my arms and forehead and pulled me gently forward. Everything went dark, and then I was back on my ship, alone. It was burning. Flames poured through the vents. Clarabel's voice was gone. The stars outside had vanished. Aelya was gone. I stumbled through the smoke, calling her name, but no one answered. Then I heard a voice. You failed, it said. You let her die. You weren't enough. This isn't real, I said. Real enough, the voice said. She trusted you and you brought her here to this, to silence and ash. I dropped to my knees, gasping for breath, and for a moment I wanted to believe it, that I had failed, that I had broken something too big to fix. But then I remembered her eyes, the way she looked at me when I made her laugh, the way she reached for my hand in the dark, the way she believed, and I stood up. No, I said, I'm not done. The fire flickered. I don't give up, I said. Not now, not ever, not while she's still fighting, not while I still draw breath. The smoke vanished, the flames vanished. I was back on the platform, the ribbon was still. Resolve confirmed, it said. Facet passed. I collapsed to my knees, sweating, shaking, but whole. You have passed the trial of 3, Curly said. You are now heir consort in spirit as well as bond. Do I get a crown or something? I asked. Only responsibility, he said. Terrific, I muttered. Just what I wanted. But deep down I felt it, not fear, not doubt, something else, something stronger, a sense of weight, of purpose, of something that might actually be destiny, if destiny wore cargo pants and swore a lot. And I knew in that moment I had passed something more than a test. I had crossed a line, and there was no going back. They brought me from the trial chamber through a hall that pulsed with new light. It was subtle at first, the way the walls shifted color ever so slightly when I passed, from neutral blue to a deeper gold. A tone that Clarabel quietly informed me was traditionally used in the palace to denote recognition, acceptance, and alignment. In short, she said in my earpiece, they like you now, congratulations. You've upgraded from suspicious outsider to possibly useful asset. Please try not to ruin it." "I ruin everything," I whispered. "It's my gift." "Yes, well," Clarabel replied, "perhaps leave that gift unopened for today." Waiting at the end of the hall was Aelya, no longer wearing the simple robe she had traveled in, but now dressed in formal regalia that shimmered like flowing crystal woven from strands of light. Her eyes caught mine, and something in her expression shifted, softened, strengthened, and ignited all at once. She didn't speak at first. She just stepped toward me and took my hand, and in that touch I felt the entire planet's worth of words she didn't need to say. Then she said them anyway. "You came through," she said. "You always do." "Barely," I said. "You know how often I wing these things. Like 90% of my success is improv." "And yet here you stand," she said, "Air Consort." "Still not entirely sure what that means," I said, "but it sounds important and vaguely threatening." "It means the throne recognizes you," she said. "It means you are mine, not just by accident or impulse or biology, but by right. It means we can stand together in the light." I glanced behind her. "There's not going to be a wedding ceremony with swords and lasers, is there?" "Not today," she said, "but possibly next week." "Remind me to practice my vows and ducking," I said. She smiled, then turned and walked beside me into the grand hall of the throne. I had seen large rooms before. I had worked in cargo bays the size of city blocks, been inside hangars that held interstellar cruisers, even once gotten lost inside a diplomatic ballroom on Tryon 6 that had 3 separate atmospheres and a bar that served drinks on rotating gravity fields. But this place made all of those look like coat closets. The throne room was not just a space. It was a declaration. The floor was polished to a mirror sheen, not reflecting the ceiling but instead showing alternate views of constellations I didn't recognize. The walls were lined with vertical lines of light that pulsed with slow rhythms like a heartbeat spread across architecture. And at the far end, set into an arch that arced like the eye of some forgotten god, was the throne itself. Not just a chair, not just a symbol, but the same construct of light I had seen in the trial chamber, now magnified, deepened, elevated. It hovered slightly off the ground, not with mechanical support but sheer will. Surrounding the throne were rows of robed figures, each with a different mask, some familiar, others entirely new. A council, an audience, a reckoning. Aelya stepped forward, raised her hand, and spoke a phrase that I didn't understand but felt anyway. It rang inside my chest like a chime of ancient recognition. "He stands as my consort," she said. "He has passed the trials. He is chosen." The robed figures didn't speak. Instead, the lights of the chamber flared once, then slowly dimmed to a lower hum. From the shadows emerged a figure taller than all the others, its mask a perfect sphere with no features, only pulsing with a soft internal glow. This, I was told later, was the Keeper, the last living judge of the throne who had not spoken aloud in 200 years. He stepped toward me and paused just out of reach. Then he raised one hand and the space between us shimmered. I felt a presence reach into me, not violently but thoroughly, like it was reviewing every page of my autobiography without asking for an autograph. Then he lowered his hand, and he spoke. "He is truth," the Keeper said. "He carries no deception. He walks the line between choice and chaos. He is what the throne has always required, a heart capable of failure, a soul unafraid of it." The others bowed, not deeply, not showily, just enough to make the hair on my neck stand up. Aelya turned to me and reached out both hands. I took them not because I knew what to do, but because my body moved before my brain could argue. The keeper stepped back. The throne began to glow brighter. "Now," Aelya said, "we ascend." "Define ascend," I said. "We bind to the throne," she said. "You, me, and the memory of everything that came before." "I was really hoping for snacks first," I said. She squeezed my hands. "Next time." Together we stepped forward. The light from the throne reached toward us like fingers made of music. It wrapped around our arms, our chests, our hearts, and for a second I thought I was going to dissolve into light entirely. And maybe I did. Because what followed wasn't thought or vision, but something else. A cascade of memory, not mine, not hers, all of it. Generations of rulers. Wars fought in silence. Loves won and lost and turned to legend. Betrayals that split continents, forgiveness that rebuilt them. All of it passed through me in a torrent of emotional gravity I couldn't dodge or deflect. At the center of it, Aelya was a constant, a thread that shimmered across time. And in that moment, so was I, not because I was special, not because I was chosen, but because I chose again, and again, and again. The light faded, the air cooled. I was still standing, so was she. We were holding each other, breathing as if we'd forgotten how and then remembered it just in time. Around us the room was silent. Then slowly a low hum filled the air. The throne pulsed once, then settled. Aelya turned to the assembly. "We are bound," she said. "He is mine and I am his, and the throne accepts us both." The masks bowed, the lights rose, and for the first time in a very long time, I did not feel like an accident of circumstance. I felt like a decision. And even better, I felt like I was finally part of the story I'd been dragged into. Not the comic relief, not the background human, the partner, the power behind the fire. The one who walked into a crystal palace with oil on his boots and still got handed the keys. Later, in the quiet of our private chamber, when the robes and titles and expectations were tucked away behind sliding walls and silent attendants, I turned to her and said the one thing that had been rattling in my brain since I stood in front of the throne. "I'm not just your bonded," I said. "I'm your equal." She looked at me with that soft fire in her eyes and said, "You always were. You just needed a throne to believe it." And maybe she was right, because I had come into this thinking I was the lucky one, the mistake, the outsider. But now, with her beside me and the future pulling us forward, I saw it clearly. I wasn't her afterthought. I was her choice. And she was mine. And together, we were going to make the stars remember it. If I had to rank the top 10 worst ways to be woken up inside a crystal palace floating above a dead moon, while technically holding the title of heir consort to a genetically encoded alien monarchy, number 1 would definitely be sudden planetary atmospheric displacement, accompanied by a chorus of planetary defense cannons, charging up right outside your window. Number 2 would be being woken up by a giant glowing face in the ceiling shouting your name, while your partner is busy trying to untangle herself from ceremonial sleepwear that appears to be both traditional and an elaborate trap made of sentient ribbon. Unfortunately for me, this morning managed to combine both those options into one spectacular screamfest that began with my room lighting up like someone had crammed a supernova into a disco ball, and ended with Clarabelle's voice in my ear calmly stating that the palace was under siege and I might want to locate pants. "Define siege," I mumbled, already falling out of bed and slamming into the floor like a sack of regrets. "External military formation," Clarabelle replied, "surrounding the palace using energy dampeners, orbital disruptors, and a series of boarding pods which I suspect contain people who would very much like to remove your internal organs for keepsakes. So not metaphorical siege, I said, reaching for the nearest article of clothing that looked like it might have come from Earth and not an alien Renaissance festival. Very much not metaphorical, Clarabel confirmed. Also, they seem to be broadcasting a message to all nearby vessels and installations identifying you by name and declaring you a traitor to the sovereign line. Of course they are, I said. It was way too quiet around here. Aelya was already up, standing barefoot on the platform by the window, her eyes locked on the sky where crimson ships were arranging themselves in a tight perimeter that screamed military blockade. She turned to me with the kind of expression that made me wish I was still back in my old cargo hauler, worrying about faulty coolant lines instead of interstellar political assassinations. "They've come," she said. "The House of Devon. I knew they wouldn't stay silent forever." "Devon?" I asked. "I thought they were allies, or at least not actively hostile." "They were once bound to my house," she said. "But when the throne faded, they chose ambition over loyalty. They've been waiting for a chance to strike. And now, with the bonded ascension confirmed, they see a threat to their plans. So they are attacking now because we got married," I said, in symbolic, throne-energized, civilization-restoring terms. "Yes," she said, "they fear what we represent. Couldn't they just send a nasty email?" I asked. "With a virus or something. They prefer direct annihilation," she said. "Less ambiguity." "Charming," I muttered. "Clarabel options. I can override some of the palace's defense protocols," she said. "But I need time. The systems are locked behind heritage encryption, and your blood alone doesn't get me full access. So we need to stall," I said, "or distract them. Or both," Clarabel said, "preferably without exploding." "No promises," I said. Aelya turned to the wall and touched one of the glowing panels, which immediately unfolded into a floating sphere that hummed with latent power. "This is the heart core," she said. "If we can activate its defense command, the palace will defend itself. But it hasn't been used in centuries. It may not respond." "Let me guess," I said. "It only responds to direct descendants of the sovereign line in a moment of urgent emotional intensity while speaking a phrase that has been lost to time." "Close," she said. "It responds to synchronized resonance between two bonded souls standing in alignment before it, reaffirming their union and commitment under threat." "That's somehow worse," I said. "Is there a switch labeled 'Please help us, we're doomed'?" "That's the phrase," she said. "In ancient Terravalian it translates roughly to 'Our light binds the flame and casts back the void.' And you know this because I memorized every failed attempt my ancestors made to awaken it," she said, "just in case." "I'm both impressed and terrified," I said. "Welcome to royalty," she replied. We stood in front of the heart core, which began to shimmer the moment our hands touched its surface. I could feel its awareness, like a quiet observer who had just realized it was being addressed after centuries of silence. Aelya began to speak the phrase. I echoed her, trying not to mangle the pronunciation. The heart core pulsed once, then again, then a third time brighter than before. "It's responding," Clarabel said. "I'm seeing massive energy buildup across the defensive lattice. If this works, the palace might not just defend itself. It might fight back." "Good," I said, "because I don't want our marriage celebration to end in orbital disintegration." Outside, the enemy ships began to move. Pods detached from their hulls and streaked toward the palace like falling stars with bad intentions. "They're boarding," Clarabel said. 10 seconds to hull contact." The heart core flared. A wave of energy rippled through the room, passing through us like a warm breath. I felt my skin tingle, my chest tighten, and then a deep sound vibrated through the walls like the palace itself had started to hum with anger. "That's new," I said. "The palace is waking up," Aelya said. "It remembers what it is." Defense turrets slid from hidden alcoves in the outer towers. Energy shields sprang to life along vulnerable corridors. The floor beneath us shifted slightly, angling toward a tactical orientation I didn't entirely understand but trusted not to throw me into space. "Boarding pods intercepted," Clarabel said. "Two disabled. One breached the outer dome. I'm dispatching containment units now." "Do you need backup?" I asked. "If by backup you mean you with a pointy stick, then no," she said. "Stay with the heart core. It's linking you to Central Command." "I didn't agree to be a general," I said. "Too late," Clarabel replied. "You're already wearing the metaphorical cape." I looked at Aelya. "If we survive this, I'm building us a cabin in a forest where no one speaks in metaphors." "You'd last 4 hours before reactivating a cryochamber just to annoy it," she said. "Still worth trying," I said. The heart core pulsed again, brighter, stronger, and I felt something inside me click into place. Not power, not confidence, but clarity. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was choosing. Again, for her, for us. For whatever this wild, ridiculous, beautiful bond had become. And if someone wanted to tear that down, they were going to have to go through me. So here's the thing no one tells you about becoming emotionally bonded to an ancient royal heir, and then synchronizing your very nervous human nervous system to a millennia-old crystalline fortress with its own sentience and mood swings. It tends to change how your day goes. One minute you're standing in a glowing chamber trying to figure out if you just accidentally proposed marriage in a dead language. And the next, you're connected to the command structure of a living palace that just decided you're qualified to issue defense orders, manage atmospheric shielding, and redirect plasma beam arrays with your heartbeat. "Cal," Clarabel said in my earpiece with a tone that, if she had breath, would have sounded like she was sighing heavily into a paper bag. "You are now officially logged in as a living resonance key." "That sounds important," I said. "It means the palace thinks you're part of its executive function layer," she replied. "It just rerouted defensive authority through your biometric rhythm." "I don't know what any of that means, Clarabel," I said. "It means you're a weapon now," she said. "Congratulations. Try not to sneeze." "This is not comforting," I said, looking down at my hands as if they might suddenly sprout cannons. "Should I be worried about exploding?" "Only if your emotional state destabilizes," Clarabel said. "Just stay calm. The system interprets aggressive spikes in adrenaline as strategic intent. So if I panic, it might fire lasers." "Yes," she said, "really big ones." "Terrific," I said. This just became a very high-stakes version of Don't Freak Out. Aelya stood beside me, her own hand still resting on the heart core. Her breathing was steady, her eyes focused. She looked like a monarch out of legend, half warrior, half myth, fully composed. "You're doing well," she said softly. "The palace accepts you. It's aligning its frequencies to yours." "Why does that sound like a marriage counseling exercise?" I asked. "Because it is," she said. "Except the counselor is a 12-kilometer-wide ancient war machine with opinions." "And here I thought meeting your parents would be the hard part," I muttered. Outside the windows, the sky had become a storm of light. The Devan fleet had stopped trying to board and was now focusing entirely on assault. Their ships had formed a siege ring, targeting the palace with synchronized barrages designed to punch through the outer shielding. The palace responded by blooming with energy, lances of sapphire plasma streaking outward from hidden towers, knocking ships into spirals of spinning debris. "Status?" I asked. "Shields holding at 64%, Clarabel said. "Energy recycling is efficient, but we're outnumbered." "How bad is outnumbered?" 18-1, she said. "Not great odds." "I've had worse," I said. "Name one," she said. "Dating," I replied, before the Cryopod thing. "Fair," she admitted. "Still, I recommend tactical deployment of our advantage." "Which is?" I asked. "You," she said. "Your neural resonance is now fully interfaced. The palace is reading your intent patterns and can extrapolate command vectors from subcortical emotional flux. So if I feel angry in the right direction, the palace fires missiles." "More or less," Clarabel said. "Focus on the idea of protection, on defending her, on preserving the bond." I looked at Aelya. She met my gaze not with pressure but with absolute trust. I reached out, took her hand again, and let the feeling rise. The fear, the love, the frustration, the stubborn, irrational, overwhelming certainty that no one was going to take her from me, not now, not ever. The palace pulsed with light. Outside, the plasma arrays shifted orientation, targeted new threats, and fired in synchronized harmony. 3 Devan ships evaporated in seconds. "That worked," Clarabel said. "New targets neutralized. Tactical response elevated." "Great," I said. "Now all I have to do is stay emotionally righteous while being bombarded from orbit. Piece of cake." The floor trembled slightly. "Breach," Clarabel said. "They found a weak point. Internal incursion detected in Sector 7. "That near us?" I asked. "Too near," she said. "Containment units are already moving, but I suggest you relocate, or, alternately, grab a weapon." "Aelya," I said, "do you have anything sharp that makes people regret bad life choices?" She reached under the console and pulled out a blade that looked half ceremonial and half designed to slice through tank plating. "Always," she said. "You take the left." We moved quickly, the palace guiding our steps with flickers of light along the floor. Every turn felt like it knew where we needed to go before we did. I don't know how to explain it better than to say the building itself was rooting for us. When we reached Sector 7, it was already chaos. The Devan infiltrators had used a molecular breaching drill to punch a hole into the side corridor and were now pouring in with pulse rifles and armor that looked like it had been designed by angry wasps. One of them turned and saw us. He raised his weapon. I didn't think. I didn't have to. The palace surged through me and I lifted my hand, and the wall behind him exploded into a net of glowing filaments that wrapped him in a containment web before he could pull the trigger. "You're getting good at this," Aelya said, already moving to intercept the next intruder. I followed, not with precision but with determination. I wasn't trained for battle, but I had a living fortress whispering strategies into my spine. We fought side by side, her blade flashing, my thoughts projecting defensive barriers, tactical pulses, anything the palace could interpret and translate into action. By the time the corridor was clear, I was shaking. Not from exhaustion, but from the overwhelming realization that I was now part of something much larger than I had ever imagined. "That was the advance team," Clarabel said. "Main force arriving in 3 minutes. "Can we hold them?" I asked. "No," she said, "but we don't have to." "Clarabel," Aelya said, "initiate the fold-wake." "You're serious?" Clarabel asked. "The fold-wake hasn't been used in 800 years. "Then it's overdue," Aelya said. Can you do it? If Cal gives the final pulse, she said, he's the bonded, he's the trigger. What does that mean? I asked. The fold wake will shift the palace into a stasis phase overlay, Clarabel said. It makes us untouchable, invisible, but only if your neural key seals the fold. What happens if I mess it up? I asked. The palace tears itself in half and you disintegrate across 12 dimensions, she said, but no pressure. Wonderful, I said, guide me. I moved to the central node, raised my hand and concentrated, not on fear, not on control, but on trust, on Aelya, on the bond, on the moment we met, the ridiculous series of events that brought us here, and the unshakable knowledge that I would rather be nowhere else than with her, defending a palace of impossible light against impossible odds. The palace heard me. The fold opened, and the universe blinked. The thing about shifting an ancient alien palace into an alternate dimensional phase using only your feelings and some mildly panicked mental focus is that nobody prepares you for what it actually feels like when the universe decides you no longer exist in it. 1 second you're standing in a hallway full of energy discharges and collapsed boarding parties, and the next, everything around you turns into light and memory, and a distant ringing like someone had just struck a bell the size of a solar system, and told it to hum in a minor key for the next 3,000 years. I was floating but still touching the ground, breathing without air, thinking in multiple directions while still absolutely certain I needed to scratch my neck but couldn't find where my neck had gone. Aelya stood beside me, her form outlined in the same soft glow that now wrapped the palace, her eyes wide but focused, her grip on my hand the only tether I had to any definition of reality I still recognized. "We made it," she whispered, her voice carrying perfectly in the silent stillness. "We're between states now, not visible, not touchable, not destructible. What happens if we sneeze?" I asked, my mouth struggling to form words through whatever particles we were now composed of. "The sneeze will probably evolve into a religion," she said, "so try to hold it in." "Noted," I said. "Clarabel." Still here came the voice in my head, sounding oddly amused. "Congratulations, you've successfully activated the fold wake. The palace is in stasis phase, untraceable across standard vectors. The enemy fleet is now firing into empty space, which is deeply satisfying to watch." "Do we have visuals?" I asked. "I'd love to see confused war criminals." "Projecting now," she said, and one of the nearby walls shimmered until it became transparent, revealing the external world in monochromatic shadow. Outside, the Devan fleet was circling, loosing bursts of plasma and concentrated energy where the palace had once been, now finding nothing but empty sky. Several of their ships had collided in confusion, 2 were spinning off course, and a command vessel appeared to be sending out frantic broadcasts that pinged no responses. "They have no idea where we are," Aelya said, "and they won't, not while the fold wake holds." "How long does that last?" I asked. "Technically," Clarabel replied, "indefinitely, as long as your neural signature stays stable." "So as long as I don't start doubting myself or get too hungry," I said. "Correct," she said. "The palace is tied to your emotional regulation. You are the anchor. You stop believing we're safe and we won't be." "This feels like a terrible idea," I said, "but at least it's our terrible idea." Aelya moved to a platform that unfolded beneath her feet like an offering. "We have time now, time we wouldn't have had otherwise. The fold wake gives us space to think, to plan, and to not be vaporized," I added. "That too," she said. She beckoned me forward and I stepped onto the platform beside her. It rose slowly, revealing the entire interior of the palace, now suspended in soft bioluminescent quiet. The chambers that once thrummed with activity were now calm, as if the structure itself had gone into meditation. We passed beneath floating statues of ancient rulers, beside corridors lined with suspended crystal that seemed to pulse gently with forgotten songs, through vast chambers of memory storage that held the recorded echoes of every monarch who had ever sat on the throne. "What is this place really?" I asked. "The palace," she said, "is a living repository, not just a home, not just a fortress. It's a witness to our history, to our decisions, to our mistakes." "And now it's listening to me," I said. "It's adapting to you," she corrected. "You're not just being listened to, you're shaping it." "Which is horrifying," I said, "because most of my life has been shaped by microwave burritos and last-minute decisions." She smiled and reached out to touch a panel that revealed a series of star charts. "We can go anywhere now," she said, "anywhere the palace remembers. The foldwake allows us to step through coordinates encoded in its memory. We can outmaneuver them." "Or hide forever," I said. "That too," she said, "but I don't think we're meant to." I looked at her, saw the way the soft light illuminated her face, the strength in her eyes, the resolve that hadn't wavered once since I pulled her out of that pod, and I knew she was right. We weren't meant to run. We were meant to rise, but before we did that, I had a question. "So," I said, "now that we're temporarily unkillable and hidden from the universe, can I ask something potentially awkward?" "Always," she said. "Are we actually married?" She blinked. "You're asking this now. Seems like a good time," I said. "We're outside of time, no interruptions, and I'd kind of like to know what I signed up for besides political martyrdom and occasional sword fights." "Technically," she said, "we're spiritually bonded through ancestral protocol recognized by the throne and confirmed through triadic resonance during your trial." "Which means—" "We're married," she said, "extremely married." "Right," I said. "And do I get an anniversary notification or a magical ring that glows when I forget something important?" "No," she said, "you get me." "Even better," I said, and I leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't planned. It wasn't ceremonial. It wasn't part of any throne ritual or cultural bonding dance involving flaming ribbons and recited oaths. It was just us, in a bubble outside time, floating inside a living palace, holding each other like we had found something worth fighting for in the wreckage of everything we'd lost, and the palace glowed a little brighter. "Clarable," I said after a moment. "Still here," she said. "Not watching," I added. "Correct," she said. "Completely offline. My sensors are totally not blushing." "Good," I said, "because we need a minute." "You have all the time you need," she said, "until we decide what happens next." And that was the truth. For once, we weren't reacting. We were choosing. Not because it was easy, not because we were ready, but because we were finally in a place where our future was ours to write. And maybe, just maybe, we had a shot at not just surviving this impossible mess, but making something beautiful out of it. So here's a fun fact about living inside a sentient palace that has folded itself outside the timeline to hide you from a spacefaring civilization bent on your destruction. Eventually, you have to come back. Not because you want to, mind you, but because even the most well-meaning interdimensional hidey-hole eventually runs out of cosmic buffering and starts to whisper things like core instability and temporal friction. And that's when your AI assistant begins coughing suggestive system alerts into your ear while pretending she is not in fact judging your lack of forward planning. Clarable didn't phrase it exactly like that, of course. What she said was, "The foldwake is degrading. Neural fusion between bonded operators is no longer sufficient to sustain long-term phase dissociation. You need to return before the palace shatters itself across 8 quantum fault lines. What I heard was, "Time to go, darling, or the universe eats you sideways." I explained this to Aelya while she was meditating in the resonance chamber, which, for the record, is just a really fancy name for a glowing circular room full of humming crystals that occasionally flash bright enough to cause minor religious awakenings. She opened her eyes, gave me the look that says, "I already knew that," and stood up in one fluid motion that made me feel, once again, like the humble cargo mechanic who once tripped over a fusion wrench and broke his nose. "We were never meant to stay," she said. "The fold-wake is not escape, it is intermission." "Right," I said. "Well, Act 2 is apparently starting with missiles." "Good," she said. "Let them come." We stood before the heartcore again, hands clasped, minds linked, and spoke the phrase that had become both ritual and command. The palace responded like a creature waking from a dream, slowly unfolding its form from the folds of unreality and returning to its rightful place above the cold, dead moon where all of this had begun. And when we emerged, the galaxy was waiting. Specifically, 53 ships from 14 different political factions, each broadcasting a version of "Please do not engage unless you want a full-scale diplomatic incident." And not one of them agreed on what the incident actually was. Cryopod displayed the tactical overlay. "We've got 3 Devan command ships, 5 Trinarian scouts, at least 2 Aurelian harvesters, and a flotilla of independent observers from the Galactic Assembly." "Observers?" I asked. "Are we a zoo now?" "No," she said. "We're a referendum." "Oh, fantastic," I said. "I love being voted on by people I've never met." "They're here to assess your legitimacy," Cryopod said. "You bonded with the heir of a lost throne, revived the palace, and defeated an attempted coup. They want to know if you're a threat, an opportunity, or a symbol." "Can I be none of the above?" "Not today," she said. "Today, you're history." Aelya was already preparing for the summit. Her formal robes shimmered with encoded patterns that shifted depending on which angle you looked at them from, and I was told this was to simultaneously convey wisdom, strength, humility, and subtle romantic longing. Mine was a jacket, a very nice jacket with shiny cuffs. "Try not to insult anyone," she said as we approached the council chamber. "Just smile, nod, and let me handle the diplomacy." "Got it," I said. "Smile, nod, look pretty, don't trip." "Exactly," she said. "And if anyone challenges you, remember that you're now partially linked to a superweapon." "Tempting," I said. "But let's avoid vaporizing ambassadors on day 1. The chamber was enormous, shaped like a downward spiral where every voice could be heard clearly no matter where you stood. Delegates were already in place, staring at us with a mix of fascination, suspicion, and the universal political expression of "we will pretend to like you if you do not explode us." Aelya stepped forward first. Her voice rang clear. "I am Aelya of the sovereign line, heir of the throne eternal and bearer of the crystal bond. I speak not as conqueror, but as witness. My bonded and I did not seek power. We were chosen by the will of the palace and the test of circumstance. If you seek judgment, let it be of deeds, not blood." They murmured, the kind of murmuring that suggests sudden conference calls and hastily rewritten statements. Then someone stood, tall, robed in the spiral thread colors of the Galactic Assembly. "You claim legitimacy, yet you are untested." "We've been attacked 3 times," I said. "Does that not count?" "Trial by fire is not governance," the delegate said. "Then send your questions," Aelya said. We will answer them with truth. And so the summit began. The first question was from the Trinarians, a species who looked like iridescent paper cranes if they had been designed by engineers obsessed with symmetry and cold judgment. Their representative fluttered a series of wings and said, "By what mechanism does the human bond amplify the throne's response?" Aelya answered, "Through resonance, emotional frequency combined with neural synchrony. He completes the loop the palace requires." "Why a human?" the Trinarian asked. "Statistically improbable." "So is survival," I said. "Yet here we are." That earned a flutter of polite discomfort. The Aurelians were next, a species of floating moss-like entities that spoke through scent and wave vibration. Clarabel translated their message. "They ask whether your presence will destabilize the region." "I'm a glorified mechanic who fell into a frozen love story," I said. "If anything, I bring emotional confusion and unexpected repairs." "They interpret that as potentially stabilizing," Clarabel noted, "which is deeply concerning." More delegates spoke. Some challenged our claims, others demanded data. A few simply asked why, and every time we answered with the only thing we had: truth, that we hadn't planned any of it, that the bond was spontaneous, that the throne chose me not because I was powerful, but because I refused to walk away, because I stayed. Eventually, someone brought up precedent. "There has never been a human monarch," said a delegate from the Sapphire Rings Consortium. "Your kind has always remained on the periphery." "That ends today," Aelya said. "We stand equal, even in bloodline, even in choice," she said. "Bloodline fades, choice defines us." It built from there. The murmuring became debate. Debate became division. And soon the chamber was filled with rising voices, some demanding rejection, others calling for inclusion. Clarabel sent me a private ping. "This is about to devolve." "Can we hold a vote?" I asked. "You're not a council member," she said. Yet I said, I stepped forward. "I'm not a king," I said. "I didn't grow up in a palace. I can't recite ancient lineages, but I know this: your system failed. It collapsed into legend and silence, and all I did was show up and care. Maybe that's what you need, someone who cares enough to rebuild." The chamber quieted. "And if you still think that makes me dangerous, fine. Watch me, but don't stand in the way of someone trying to make something better." Then I stepped back. Aelya squeezed my hand. "That was reckless." "It was honest," I said, "and for once they listened." They voted 3 hours later. Clarabel tracked every shift in support, every whispered alliance, every sudden defection. By the end of it, the air felt like it was holding its breath. The final tally appeared on the chamber walls: 41 in favor, 11 against, 1 abstention. "You are recognized," the assembly said, "by right of deed and resonance." "We accept," Aelya said, "with peace." They bowed, not all of them, but enough. And with that the room emptied and we were left standing in a hall that had not known applause in centuries. We didn't speak for a while, just stood there, fingers intertwined, watching the future unfold around us like a sunrise we'd almost missed. "So," I said eventually, "what now?" "Now," Aelya said, "we lead, and people are going to listen." "They already are," she said. "The palace is waking more and more. The systems are online. There are regions waiting for guidance, refugees looking for shelter, entire networks of civilization adrift. So we save them, one at a time," she said, "together." Later, in our private chambers, after the robes were gone and the titles had settled, we sat side by side looking out at the stars. "Do you regret it?" she asked, opening the Cryopod. "Never," I said. "It was the best mistake I ever made." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "It wasn't a mistake, it was fate." "I don't believe in fate," I said, "but I believe in you." "And I," she said, "believe in us." And somewhere deep in the heart of the palace, the lights pulsed with quiet joy. The galaxy hadn't ended, it had just changed shape, and we were part of it now. Not passengers, not survivors, but builders, bonded, chosen, together. And that, as far as endings go, felt suspiciously like a beginning.